And hello, everybody, to the coverage of the 103rd British Chess Championship, the last round today, round number 11. And my name is Niclas Huschenbeth. You might be familiar with me already. And today I'm joined by Macauley Peterson. And I'm very pleased that I'm joined by him because usually he's doing a lot of work behind the camera. And now all of you can also see how he looks like. And we'll do some commentary today, so I'm looking forward to that.
Well, thanks, Niclas. You know, you make it sound like this is the first time I've ever done commentary, but it actually has been quite a few times in the past, but not recently.
Not recently.
And I'm sitting in for Fiona, who has the day off for a very good reason, which is that she's going to be doing commentary starting at 8 p.m. Tonight until about midnight, at least, on the first round of the Sinkfield Cup in French. So the multi-talented polyglot Fiona will be still pulling her weight around here this evening. So if you speak French, or if you would like to follow the German, Spanish, or English commentary that will also be done on the Sinkfield Cup, you can do so at 8 o'clock tonight, same place. But we're here because round 11 is not near. Round 11 is here, as the English Chess Federation Twitter account just told us.
Yes, and before we maybe get to the games, we can take a quick look at the standings just to keep you guys updated what's going on in this last round. So let me get to the standings. Maybe hold on, maybe I have to do something else.
We've got the standings,
Okay,
or just got them sized slightly wrong.
Okay.
Anyway, you guys don't need to see the standings to know that
moment.
Mickey Adams is in the clear lead with 9 out of 10. He's been a very deserving winner if he does in fact go on to win. It's not quite over, but he's certainly in the driver's seat here, only needing a draw to clinch. And it would be, it would be kind of a miracle if he didn't manage to pull it out, I would think.
Yeah, absolutely stunning performance. And now we have the standings kind of hovering above our heads. You can see Mickey Adams on 9 out of 10. Just an incredible performance. He has won the last 5 games and he has beaten both his direct competitors. Of course, the other 2 favorites in the tournament, David Howell and Gawain Jones. We can see David Howell, the only player who can still reach Mickey Adams in case Mickey loses and David wins. And then there's a further gap of 1 point to a bunch of players on 7 points, namely 4, Gawain Jones, John Ems, Justin Tan, and Martin Brown.
And Mickey Adams does have black today, but the good news for him is that so does David Howell, so no advantage there.
Yeah, and there was somebody brought it up in the chat a few rounds ago. He said Mickey Adams has only lost to players below 2600 3 times this century. That's 16 years. And it would just seem absolutely unthinkable that he loses against a player who's almost 500 rating points below him. So he might even go for a win because he, of course, being a top player for so long, he knows he's sure of his class and he's not afraid here to not win this title, that's for sure. So we can go through the first moves, I would say.
Yeah, let's do it.
But first, let me put the standings away for now. There we go. And then we can go through the first moves. And it is a Scotch. So Martin Brown also obviously having a great tournament, playing on the first board in the last round. That's also because there was just no other player left in the field next to Mickey Adams, who he didn't play yet. He really played all the top guys more or less. Actually, even though, hold on. Yesterday, I think Fiona and I were thinking or expecting that Mickey would play against John Ems, but that didn't happen.
Maybe the color breakdown?
I guess. John...
Oh, no, wait, no, they both have white, so that's not it.
I don't know. No, John Ems has not played against Mickey, so that's surprising. But anyways, let's focus on the games and go through. And it is a Scotch here between Martin Brown and Mickey Adams.
I would be willing to bet we can get an explanation from the arbiter on that as well, which we can share on the webcast.
Yeah.
We are going to keep an eye on our live chat and also the Twitter hashtag Chess24Live, or C24Live rather, excuse me. And so yeah, feel free, but take it away.
Yes, yeah. Please send us your questions or interact with us in the chat in the previous rounds. That has been going great. There was a lot of interaction and a lot of questions. I see Pramod again here. He's with us every day. That's awesome. Welcome as well in Danger Mao, and a lot of people have been following and interacting. That's great.
Danger Mao points out that Brown has already played Howl, so it could work for colors in a sense that way.
I don't know. I'm not too familiar with the regulations regarding pairings. I always thought that first you look for a player for the first seed, the players leading the tournament, and you try to find the strongest opposition, but I guess there are some other rules to consider as well.
Yeah, well, as a general matter, of course, in tournaments like this with so many rounds, you can often have the situation where the last round is not necessarily the matchup of the top two players. In fact, this is sometimes considered a problem in terms of championships, in terms of having them build dramatically to a conclusion. You might have had, well, we've seen already the Adams-Howell game, and so we just don't have those pairings available in the last round.
That's right. That's what often happens when you play an 11-round tournament.
The alternative is a knockout, and that has its own problems. So
right. All right. Let's get to some chess. Here, Mickey goes for knight f6. Of course, there's also the other main move here, bishop c5. Both, I think, are considered equally good for black to face a scotch. And now, white could also opt for a very quiet game here with the knight c3, 4 knights variation, but takes on c6, and this is the more critical try. Goes e5, queen e7, queen e2, knight d5, c4. Here 2 moves for black, bishop a6, and the move Mickey chooses, knight b6. Now knight c3. Now queen e6, it's important to start with queen e6, because after g6 you would run into knight e4, and that would be quite annoying on the dark squares. So queen e6 is kind of a useful waiting move. And now that white put the queen on e4, now black is playing g6, because now the knight cannot go to e4 anymore and threaten any jumps to f6. We have a couple more moves here. After g6, white played bishop d3, bishop g7, now f4, castle, castle, and f5. And both players playing fairly quickly. That is pointing to the fact that they're still in their opening theory of preparation.
And I always like, when I'm watching these games at home, also to have a quick look at our database tab.
Absolutely, that's what I just want to do, in fact. And for all of you at home, you can do it as well. It's so easy. You just go below the board. There are all the tabs. A lot of information actually packed there. I think people often don't realize how much stuff is there. You can read information about the game, about the tournament. You can actually download this game or all the games. Also, of course, some features are restricted to premium users. But there's also the feature opening tree and database. And looking at this,
the newest feature actually is a small one, so it's easy to have overlooked. But on our little burger menu to the lower left of the board, the A1 square, there's now a option to open the game directly in our analysis mode. So while you have access already to the opening tree and database right below the board, even in the broadcast, if you want to go into more depth, and if you want to do your own analysis and then save it, for example, for the future, you can actually, from any position, instantly open the game in analysis, and then you can do annotations and you can save it, and you still also have access to all the same tools. So that's great.
That's pretty good stuff. You should definitely check this out.
Anyway, to answer the question, there are 2 games after F5 that we have in our 6 million some database. But neither of them was played by a particularly high-rated player.
Yeah, interesting. So indeed, Mickey is playing the first rare move here. The last move, f5, is by far not the main move. There have been 50 games or so played in this line, and here usually black opted for bishop a6, or sometimes also d6. So f5 by Mickey, who had certainly prepared this, is a surprise to Martin Brown, and he will take some time here. And usually that's the first critical moment in a game. There was a great coach, might have been Dorfman, who came up with this concept of critical moments. And critical moments are moments in the game when you want to spend some more time, because here it's important, of course. That's what it's called, critical moment, to make a good move or to make a good decision. And one critical moment is right after the opening phase or your preparation is ended, to make sure you don't head in the wrong direction. I'm just recalling this game between Nair and Vasilograf in a very sharp Najdorf variation, and then Nair was out of his preparation. He made 2 moves or 3 moves and blundered immediately. Not sure if he didn't spend enough time there, but it's just, those are important moments. So I'm expecting Martin Brown to take some time here. He will consider to take en passant on f6, or just move the queen. Moving the queen seems to be most logical, because you want to keep those pawns on e5 and f4, because they're giving you a nice space advantage.
The other really cool thing that you can do actually with the analysis tool is to find out what game Martin Brown might have been preparing against. So
really?
If you pop in Mickey Adams in the database tab when you search for a player, then back up the game, see when he was playing black, up until what point, and it turns out that he had a bunch of games as late as move 10, and one game from 2013 up until move 11, and then he was playing against a 2500 player, so that if the players were preparing a specific line and were not already surprised, which of course may have happened earlier, but if they weren't already surprised, they might have actually been looking at this game up until move 10.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting to kind of backtrack it like that and find out. And of course, you can also use this tool, the database, for your own preparation, for your own tournament games. So really a lot of uses there, and I just encourage you to play around with it and see what's possible. Over 6 million games. It's quick, it's easy to use. So check it out. All right, I think we continue our tour and look at game number 2, or board number 2, rather, I should say. Also here e4, e5, and now knight f3, knight c6. David Howell once again with the black pieces, just like yesterday. Yesterday he played a splendid game against Nick Pert. That was the bishop c4 line. Here John Ems is going for Roy Lopez, bishop b5, a6, bishop a4. And let's see, and here the line 6 d3. The main move here being, of course, rook e1, 63, a more calm approach.
One that Peter Svidler has recommended.
True, yeah, we can do another plug here.
We
always love to do this.
I'll try. I'll try to space out the plugs a little bit, wearing my content director hat. But, okay.
No, that's true. There's a video series here on Chess24 by world-class player Peter Svidler on this particular Spanish 6 d3. All right, let's go and continue. Bishop b3, d6, and now a3. That's an interesting setup. You're creating some space for bishop. You don't want to allow black to exchange the bishop via knight f5 and knight takes b3. Usually white goes c3, but this is an interesting idea to allow the bishop to get to a2, and the point is that you still can develop the knight to c3 and potentially bring the knight to d5. And here knight b8.
Yeah, and also a4 is quite normal in that position too. Now, why would you, as a white player, choose a3 versus a4?
I think probably here, of course, black could play a move like bishop b7 or rook b8, but also black has the option of going b4, and then I cannot get this knight c3, knight d5 in anymore. So maybe this was his reasoning. So this would certainly lead to different positions. I think I've looked at this before, and there is some some venom to this line with knight c3, even though it looks very harmless. And interesting move here by David, playing knight b8 back, just kind of in the Breyer style, which is a very reasonable Roy Lopez variation. We also regroup the knight, because the knight is not that well placed on c6, and you open up the c-pawn, the knight can go to d7, and bishop can go to b7. So, seems very sensible, and now John is taking some time to figure it out from here. Yeah, I'm wondering if you can play like something in the center right now, like d4 right now. Because knight b8, it is a little bit slow, so possibly white could do something directly, but I'm guessing that black would just reply with knight bd7 and then just continue bishop b7. It's very solid.
And you've talked about this before, but we can again see from the move times that David Howell arriving a few minutes late to the board, probably not spending 4.5 minutes to actually ponder whether or not to play e5, but just arriving just a little bit after the clock score started.
Right, yeah, we've mentioned this pretty much every single round.
As is his wont.
That's just his playing style, but you know, he's on 8 out of 10. So we cannot really criticize him too much. Of course, this one crucial game, which with hindsight you could say maybe more or less determined the championship, Howell against Adams, in which he lost, one could say mainly due to his time problems. Yeah, you know, time is a crucial factor, so, but this is just his playing style, and
yeah. Well, I mean, it's been a lifelong struggle for him, actually, that time management. So yeah, I don't know that.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard. It's always hard to second guess whether something actually hinges on that or not. But it's you know, it's always a factor. It's always
right. And even more so impressive that he recently crossed 2700. And of course, he is an amazingly strong player, even if he's low on time. Yesterday, he showed that he was a little bit in time trouble, but he played great chess, played a beautiful endgame against Nick Pert.
Well, and he's also spent a lot of time at the very top of our leaderboards in Blitz. So
yes, he is good. That's true. He's actually one of the best players on Chess24.
That's, of course, you know, a pretty good objective measure of your abilities at fast time controls, obviously.
Right.
So he's played many games and still coming out on top. We have strong players on the site, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to board number 3, Richard Palliser is playing against Gawain Jones, and Richard Palliser is on 6.5 out of 10. He had a tournament pretty much on par. He's actually not beaten yet. He is one of the few players, possibly the only player besides Mickey Adams, that has not lost a game. He drew his last 5 games. So quite a streak going. Wow. And today he's playing with the white piece against Gawain. And Gawain is choosing the Caro-Kann. And the advanced variation here is my cup of tea. I've played this many times with the white pieces, bishop e2. Here black has a choice between directly going c5 or delaying it for later, first developing the pieces. And there's so many plans here. It's a really rich strategic position, which I'm still learning a lot about, and still there are subtleties here and there. Very interesting. I'm looking forward how Richard is handling this position. Castle now h6. h6 has the purpose to give the bishop the option to retreat to h7, as well as in some lines black goes g5, but I found in my own practice that usually doesn't pay off for black to go g5. It creates more weaknesses than it creates like active play. Now b3. So this is not a move I play or recommend, but it's also quite possible. Usually I go knight bd2, knight b3. Knight is well placed on b3 because it is preventing or exacerbating c5, and then white is grabbing some space. And later white can also still play with c4, but this is a different approach. The point of b3 is that after c4, if black was to take on c4, white could take back with the pawn. That's why white played b3. To not give black this square on d5 if the bishop takes. So this position is currently on the board. Of course, black doesn't have to take on d5, on c4. In general, black, the problem black has, because he has less space, he needs to find ways to develop his pieces, right? They're a little bit crammed in right now, and you need to find ways to particularly deal with this knight. Where is it going to go? Sometimes people play the bishop back, then go knight g6 or knight f5. It looks a little bit awkward, but the point is just to get your piece out and finish your development. So it will be interesting to see how Gawain handles this. I'm not sure. Do you know if he's a Caro-Kann player? I'm not sure. If
well, he's actually played this more often from the white side. And only one game I'm seeing with him on the black side from back in 2011.
All right.
But not very far, only up until move 5 or so.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, I would say in general he is not one to play this particular line.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
At least in high level tournament play, the ones that would be in our database.
Right. I mean, we have a lot of games. Yeah. Okay. We shall see. So this might be a little bit unfamiliar for Gawain. But of course, being a top player for a number of years, he has seen a lot and he will kind of know how to set up his piece. We'll continue our tour here. Justin Tan versus David Aggie Eggleston, who has the biggest fan base. One has to say from the people in the chat, and
one of the heroes of the tournament.
Yes,
already scoring his Grandmaster norm by which round? Several rounds ago.
By round 9, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess it would have to be it'd have to be a 9-round tournament, so that stands to reason. But still, very impressive.
Yeah, he played against. Let me see. He played against 8 Grandmasters in a row. That's not easy to accomplish in a tournament where I don't know how many Grandmasters there are in the tournament, but yeah. And he beat 3 of them in a row and then lost against Adams and Howell in consecutive games, but because his opponents were so strong, that helped him to secure his Grandmaster norm. Who might also be hunting for GM norm is Justin Tan. And here, I have to be honest, I do not know if Justin can still reach it. He would certainly need a win today. Maybe somebody in the chat knows, let us know if Justin can still score GM norm. The situation was in the last 2 rounds, he could have scored a GM norm with a win, but he drew both games. And today, David Eggleston is lower rated, and I'm not sure if Justin could still achieve this performance of 2600, which is needed to score a GM norm. And Paul Dargan is saying Tan needs a win, so he still has a chance, and he's playing with the white piece today, and he'll try everything. The last 2 rounds was always like, okay, I will try to win, but if I don't win, I still get another chance. But today, this is his last chance, so he needs to win, and he will try everything he can. That's absolutely certain. And David Eggy is going for the Sicilian and Najdorf, so that I'm sure Justin is happy to see it because, of course,
sharp.
Yes, that gives him chances, that gives him opportunities. He's going for this fashionable line with h3. Now here, this is actually, let me think about this. No, Mickey played g3 here, yeah. In the game, Adams against Eggleston, Mickey played g3, but also continuing in a similar fashion. Also, Aggie played e5 and then knight d2 and bishop g2 and so on. And this seems to be his preferred setup, to go e5, knight d2, now h5, to stop g4 from happening. But of course this move also has its drawbacks, because you're long-term weakening the square on g5, as well as this pawn sometimes can also be a target. And in fact, this is reminding me in a lot of ways right now in the Adams game, Adams against Aggie. Also there, later on though, Aggie put a pawn on h5. So we'll see here a4, very natural move to stop b5, b6, and now knight d5. And this might all still be theory. We might check this out in a moment in our database feature. But knight d5 now, takes, rook b8. Now knight c3, knight f6, queen drops back, castle, bishop b7, bishop g5. And just looking at this position, I really like this for white already, I have to say. Now you can see what I was talking about earlier. This square is weakened. You cannot get rid of this bishop so easily. White has easy play, will play rook d1, target the pawn on d6, has a nice square available on d5. And it reminds me in a lot of ways of the game Adams against Aggie, because Aggie was struggling with his weak pawn on d6 and finding ways to create counterplay. And in the end, really, Adams delivered a positional masterpiece. So let me check out the database feature.
Well, I've been checking it out as
already.
you look at the opening moves. And well, for a while they had some good company. There was Anand Topalov, Caruana Topalov, both from just June of this year, early on in the game. But they deviated around about move 7 or 8 from those games. The one that jumps out at me actually is from last December because it features with the black pieces Nurbirik Abdusatorov, who is this Uzbek prodigy who we've written about on Chess24 a couple of times, breaking rating records for his age group. And so that's the game that they followed most deeply, or the highest rated game that they followed most deeply up until 13 knight f6.
So here knight f6 is not the main move, you're saying?
Right. Bishop b7 or h4 had previously been tried.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Because knight f6, it's kind of running into this. The queen wants to move anyway, wants to vacate the square on d5. And it is running into this bishop g5 anyway, where the bishop is just perfectly placed here. And yeah, what do you do now as black? You can play queen c7, of course. But I'll just play rook d1. Now already bishop takes f6 is a threat, so probably have to go rook d8. And also in some lines, as I was hinting at earlier, this pawn on h5. Now you're already struggling to defend it, really. It's gone. So I think this pawn is really a liability for black here. Here you cannot play g6, I can take on f6, and otherwise I might just take on f6, take on h5 the next move, and say thank you very much for this h5 pawn. So, and in fact, Aggie, he has seen this issue as well and played knight e8 here, offering the exchange of bishops, which would be possible for white, but Justin said, this is not enough for me. I want to just retreat and then see what you do. Knight e8 already, of course, a move Aggie wasn't happy about. I could imagine white also exchanging here and then just putting on pressure on his pawn d6.
Yeah, that looks like it's going to be a big liability plus the h5 weakness, which he then tries to get rid of quickly instead.
Yeah, I mean, here you cannot even move the knight from the 8th rank. Probably have to play a move like rook d8. But yeah, there are many targets, like the b6 pawn can also be targeted sometimes, queen e3, d6 pawn, h5 pawn. White can maybe double on the d file, but okay. This would have been possible, probably quite nice for white as well, but Justin said, well, I'll just retreat and go to e3 now. And now h4. Kind of dealing with this pawn, at least protecting it for now. And Justin quickly replied rook a d1, not taking any action here. Because, well, black doesn't want to take on g3 anyway. If you take on g3, that would just help white open up the f-file, and it just doesn't make much sense. Sometimes there's even the option to go h4, bishop h3, or, well, white could continue g4, knight e2, knight g3. Many ideas here, certainly.
It's a lot of arrows.
Yeah, I love to draw arrows. You'll notice in this show. And really the question is, what is black doing here? Maybe knight c7 now. But I have to be honest, sometimes white can even think about just take this off. you want to check this carefully, and I'm blundering away already. Knight c7 doesn't even work because of bishop takes b6. So, yeah, what do you even do here, as black? I think Eggy is already in some trouble.
Looks quite cramped.
Yeah, maybe I was thinking for a moment, maybe you can still try to exchange the dark square bishops, but here bishop g5 would certainly run to f4. And if you take on g3 first, bishop g5, now besides taking on g5, which feels good for white as well, white can also just play a move like bishop f2, and so many targets, like we already pointed out several times. So quite uncomfortable for Eggy already. And Justin, he's happy, I'm sure, about how the opening went. He needs a win, and he might be on his way. Eggy took on g3.
Yeah, funnily enough, the computer wants to put the knight back on f6, both possibly even before taking on g3, but also now. But that's got to be a move that's a little bit hard to play just psychologically if you've done this maneuver knight d7, f6, e8, and then back to f6.
Yeah, but I understand at least right now you get rid of the weakness on h5, even though you had to compromise a little bit because you're giving white something in return. The f file now is open. But right now, I mean, what do you play? The knight has to be placed better. It cannot stay on e8 forever. That already didn't work out in his game against Adams. So knight f6 probably what he will play right now. And then, yeah, I don't know, sometimes maybe even g4, g5 would come to mind. Or, like I said earlier, moving the knight over seems like a very pleasant position for white indeed. Alright, we can see what's going on.
So we're looking at the 7 score group right now. Well, that actually is the full 7 score group.
Right. And now we're getting to 6.5
Yeah.
point players. One of them being Mark Hampton, here playing with the black pieces. Yesterday he saved himself from losing against Gawain Jones. Very exciting game. And today he's playing with the black piece against Charles Story. Charles Story also on 6.5?
Yes.
Alright. So for those players, they might still get into the prize ranks, but they certainly need a win. So they will both try, that's for sure, to finish this tournament with a win and get into prize ranks. And Passion is asking if Justin needs a GM norm. Needs a win for a GM norm today, and as far as we understand by Paul, yes, that's right, he needs to win.
There's also a comment that Eggleston can get an 11-round norm with a win today as well, but we might want to explain what the difference between a 9-round norm and an 11-round norm is.
We might want to do what?
What is the difference between a 9-round norm and an 11-round norm?
You know, I haven't updated my knowledge on that, but back in the day, I believe you needed a total of 27 games. So of your 3 norms, you need you need 27 norm games. I think that's what it is. And so it was, back in the day, it was even possible to make like a 15-round norm, for example, in the Bundesliga, and then somewhere a 13-round norm. It was 27 or 26. So it's useful to have more games, so you can have like a quicker norm as well, like with only 9 games or 7 games. But the thing is, usually you need at least 9 games anyway. The only tournament where you can score a 7-game norm, as far as I know, is the European Team Cup. Is it called like that? Yeah. The European Club Cup? Something like that. You know what I'm talking about, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just briefly skimming through the FIDE handbook on this. It's complicated, but long story short, an 11-round norm is more valuable than a 9-round norm.
Yeah.
So
but it wouldn't make it a big difference.
It wouldn't make a big difference, but yeah, it might make a little bit difference. We think that Eggleston, somebody will correct us if we're wrong, but he think that he has, this would be his 2nd norm. So it's not that he will earn the GM title, or actually, he certainly wouldn't earn the GM title because of rating, but in terms of having the 3 norms required, he's not going for his 3rd norm either. So then, in that sense, maybe having 11-round norm is more useful to him. But
right, yeah.
A little bit of FIDE
Trivia.
title arcana.
And then also, I'm really not sure if he can still score an 11-round norm, in fact. So, who knows? Anyways, we will see later, but I'm sure he doesn't care that much whether it's 9 round or 11 rounds. To get a GM norm in the first place is pretty difficult, we have to remind ourselves. So, I'm sure he's pretty happy already how the tournament went. Talking of the Mark Hapton game, let's quickly go through the opening. This is C4 line and kind of symmetrical. Black is not showing his cards yet, but is going for the King's Indian here, playing D6, and Mark has employed the King's Indian several times in the tournament. Castle, Knight C6, and now White is not going for this fianchetto line with D4, would not transpose, but is playing D3, E5, and yeah, this is very typical. White is playing on the queen side, pushing his pawns there.
So now this takes up more of an English character.
Right, absolutely. It's just more or less has transposed to an English variation. And now Knight D4, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't spent too much time on this line. I know one plan for Black is to go D5 at some point. Often has to prepare first Bishop E6, H6. But Knight D4, Mark Hapton still in his fury, playing quickly here. E3 takes, now C6. So that was the point of getting the knight exchange. So now you can prepare D5 by playing C6. D4, Bishop F5, provoking E4, and now going to H3. And here, White played D takes E5. I'm wondering if he already has to do that. What happens after Rook E1? Maybe there might be some annoying stuff already here with Knight D5. I could imagine is unpleasant. So White had to take on E5. Black cannot take on F1 here. White would get 2 pieces for the rook, and that would be a nice material advantage for White. So instead, Black just took back, and I think Black is quite happy here. Rook E1 has been played, but it seems to me the opening went quite well for Black. Probably just Queen C7, put the rook on D8. And Black kind of has a structural advantage because this square is weak. You can see White has already moved both pawns past this square, so cannot attack it anymore. And later on, Black could place a piece there, while White cannot obviously do the same because the C6 pawn is covering D5. So quite nice opening preparation by Hapton.
Although it's not so easy to reroute your F6 knight, for
That's
instance,
true.
to D4 anytime soon.
It would take some time, but it is position of more close nature, so there will be some maneuvering. People have pointed out it's more of a slow game. That is very true. But Mark Hapton very comfortable here. Also on the clock you can see he is half an hour up already, showing good preparation. Let's go to another Grandmaster duel here on board number 6. Chris Ward against Nick Pert. And Nick Pert losing against David Howell yesterday. He also lost against Gawain Jones. So that really, those were two hits, of course, which put him back. And he's not really contending for the top places anymore. He's on 6.5 out of 10. And today, certainly you would like to finish with a win, but who doesn't? That's actually always like a psychological thing. You want to finish a tournament if you can with a win. It's a nice feeling at the end. So we shall see.
One of those universal chess player phenomenons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even if your tournament went badly, and that cannot be said about Nick's tournament, went pretty much normal, but still always winning in the end, it's nice. It's nice. And vice versa. Losing is kind of unpleasant because you cannot come back from it, right? You cannot redeem yourself. Nick going for the Nimson in here, one of my favorite openings, which I have, by the way, recorded a series here on Chess24, but we said we won't do too much plugging anymore for now. And this move, Knight f3, which hasn't been seen that much on the top level, it's a move that Kasparov liked to play back in the day. And here Black has many choices. My recommendation, the move I like to play is b6 and just move the bishop to b7. Quite simple play. Another move is c5. But d5 certainly also possible. And actually this is transposing, if I'm not mistaken, to the Ragozin variation. C takes d5, e takes d5, queen a4 check, forcing Black to put the knight to c6. Bishop g5, h6, takes, e3, castle, and bishop e2. More of a slow game here. Usually in these lines, Black is going to try to create some play with his pieces on the king side against the white king, and white might think about this famous minority attack, pushing the pawns forward here on the queen side. So we shall see how this develops, but a rather slow game, I would imagine.
So do you know, without looking, what where they deviated from your series?
I do, because it happened pretty early. Yeah, here I recommend b6 instead of d5, because d5, yeah, this just transposing to all those Queen's Gambit decline variations, which I really don't have a clue about, so I'm really careful here with any opening names, but this just seems to me like transposing. So not really a Nimzo anymore, to my mind. All right. Where do you want to go next? Should we go back or?
Yeah, let's check in with the top boards, because of course, as far as determining the British champion,
Right.
The action is really only on boards 1 and 2. And well, we saw the Adams game roundabout move after f5.
13
Yeah.
f5, and actually I was saying white shouldn't take on f6 because, well, I was thinking that this pawn might still give white some space advantage, but it could very much be true as well that after queen e2 Black just plays d6 and white cannot hang on to this pawn and would need to exchange it anyway. So he took on f6, queen takes f6, and now bishop d2, and seems to me Mickey still in his preparation just d5 pretty quickly and playing in the center. And the question now is, why can't white not take on d5? Probably white can take, but there are some issues here. Probably bishop f5 looks very strong. And white might be on his way already to lose a piece here, yeah.
Well, it's interesting to note also that Martin Brown has taken about 18 minutes and 14 minutes each for his last 2 moves, whereas Mickey even spent less than 3 minutes on d5.
Right, we noted earlier that this move f5 has barely been played twice in our database, so Martin certainly didn't expect this move, may move here bishop a6, another possible move d6. I'm sure with those moves Martin Brown was familiar, but f5 really caught him by surprise, and we were already suggesting or expecting that he would spend some more time. He took on f6, played bishop d2, but it seems like he just ran into d5 here already, which honestly looks quite unpleasant. It looks like Black's already winning a pawn more or less, because if you take on d5, if I'm not missing something here, but bishop f5 is the problem. You cannot go queen f3, queen d4 check, just picks up the bishop. But if you go to e2 or e3, it also looks very, very shaky, and I think you're just dropping material here. I cannot really imagine that this should work. I have to be honest. Bishop e3, it just looks bad. Even if I just take on d5 here, I have this idea of d4, among other things. Maybe I can also play a move like queen e7. Now queen e7, and white could just move the bishop, for example, take on b6. That wouldn't be as bad, but yeah, just taking back now, and you have to deal with the threat of d4. I think white is already in big trouble. And if you play queen e3, then rook fe8, you're just losing a piece immediately, because once again, if you leave, you lose a piece either way, actually. If we go back to this line I just said, here, this is always a problem. Always a problem, this check. Even after queen e2, there's this check, just picking up the bishop. Yeah, and Egan is pointing it out, same trap, bishop, queen d4, yep, very simple. So white cannot take on d5. So what do? You play queen f3? Well, queen, I don't know.
Well, and it may be for this reason that he probably needed to play bishop e3 earlier rather than bishop d2 here.
Here you need to play bishop e3, yeah?
Yeah.
But even here d5 looks quite possible. Once again, point being white cannot take because of this really unpleasant move, bishop f5. Just winning a piece, so probably here white would need to retreat. No, hold on. Queen f3, there's d4. So how do you come back from this? Let's cheat real quick.
Yeah, you have knight e4 after d4 there.
Says you can play queen f3. Oh, of course, d4, knight e4. Yeah, of course. Counterattack, that's important. So this is what Martin should have done. But by playing the bishop to d2, he's already in big trouble. Look at this engine evaluation we just put on for a moment. Usually we work without the engine, but it's giving black a huge advantage already. And Mickey, this could not have gone better for him, let's be honest.
Yeah.
He's playing with the black pieces. He doesn't even need a win. He just needs a draw to win the championship, but he's just much better.
Clear edge up on time. He's definitely looking pretty now.
He's looking pretty after queen f3. Black can even just play a move like bishop a6. Because once again, all these lines, white can never take on d5 because of queen d4 check, just picking up the bishop. And he will pick up a pawn and probably just bring it home with his class, no doubt. Brown is saying Mickey will win this in the next 10 moves. Do you agree?
Bold prediction.
10 moves?
Well, I would bet, though, that he's sitting at the board very stoically, not showing much emotion on his face, not revealing that he's on the verge of winning the British Championship.
But he has won a British Championship.
Yeah.
I'm guessing a number of times already.
But no matter whether he's completely hopelessly lost or ecstatically winning, Mickey Adams is pretty much always looking the same at the board. Also the kind of guy that doesn't walk around so much. He's often just seated at the board, no matter whether he's up on time or down on time. Other players, they're quick making a move, immediately get up. Guys like Vladimir Kramnik, I'm thinking of in particular, tends to be one who's not at the board. But Mickey's more of the
sitting,
stoic.
Stoic,
yeah,
sitting.
Is the best word I can come up with.
I don't know. I try to personally not get up as much because you want to use that time, right? You want to use that time while your opponent is thinking as well and figure things out, try to predict his next move, and then already prepare your answer, because that can really save you a lot of time. And I think it's one of the techniques to avoid time travel, to really keep working and not like taking a break, walking around, dreaming about your possible win, but really keep working while it's your opponent's turn as well.
Yeah, I find this is actually one of the few things that you really can improve with experience and with some self-awareness that you develop only through playing in serious games. to know when it's a good idea for you to get up and take a break and walk around, but to try to fight against the impulse to do that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, because of nerves, especially, sometimes you don't want to be at the board if you're feeling edgy or whatever. But if you can get past that and then force yourself to put in the work, then that will help you with your time management and also will help you to make better moves because you're just going to be calculating more.
Right.
And it's really only, if you feel like you have to, you need to refresh yourself or
Right. I mean,
work out a kink in your shoulder or something, have a snack, then, or if you're just not thinking clearly. I mean, sometimes, you can need a mental break in a sense, as well as a physical break. But for the most part, I find that amateur players, and I think this goes even up to the level of professional players. This is something that they really have to kind of understand themselves, and then try to work on doing what produces the best results for them.
Yeah, I think there's really a lot to it, to this mental aspect. And Paul Doring is also saying, Adamson's famous for saying he realized he was just wasting time walking around. And I remember back in the day, my coach told me those top players, they just sit, or somebody said that, Leko maybe he said that, I only get up, or maybe it was Gelfand. I could also imagine Gelfand saying that. I only get up when I feel like I've seen everything in the position, I've understood everything. But how often does that really happen, right? So I think there's a lot to it, and really for everybody out there watching and playing in tournament games as well, you can just try it out and see if it changes your results. If you spend more time just sitting, thinking a little bit about the position and resisting, like you're saying, this urge to get up, walk around, check out the other games. Because in the end, the other games, they don't matter. Only your game matters, and it can really help a lot. Anyways, we're gonna get back to the chess. Queen e2 has been played by Martin Brown. But yeah, even here, just bishop a6 looks very strong. Just hitting this pawn again, and also introducing the idea to playing rook e8. Martin Brown already in big trouble.
Yeah, now Mickey's having his first more substantial think up over 5 minutes now.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably looking at whether he can play knight takes c4.
Yeah, knight takes c4 looks also interesting, and then bishop takes c4, and I'm guessing queen d4 is the idea. To now just take on c4 with the queen. And even though that's a triple pawn, it doesn't really matter. Black is a nice bishop here, and can put on nice pressure on the b file. Would be also nice. Here's just weighing his options, seeing or determining which position of which variation he likes best of the multiple he can choose from. So quite a comfortable position to be in.
So let's pop over and have a look at David Howell's game.
Yes, absolutely. So we left around here. Now knight e2. Quite a common way to regroup this knight to g3. Also a long way to go c3, d4 in the future. Knight c5. Black is targeting the bishop. White doesn't want to give it up, of course, goes bishop a2, bishop e6. Now exchanging the bishops, and now c3. And this is still interesting. White has exchanged the light squared bishops and is ready to go d4. But also black knights are quite well placed on e6 and f6. But a more slow game here, certainly. Yeah, white will probably go d4 next move. So I'm curious how we'll set up his pieces. If he goes c5, then white will just still play d4. And sometimes it's not helpful to go c5 because, again, you're creating some weaknesses. The square on d5 is a little bit weaker. So you could also imagine him going c6, but then d4 and queen c7, something along these lines. Of course, the position looks very equal, but there's some pressure that white can put on while I'm saying this. Prominent is saying c5 black equalized comfortably. Prominent also probably checking with the engine, and yeah, might as well be true. But personally, I would prefer white a little bit. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, you've always got the knight coming into f5. Black's bishop is dead for the moment.
Right.
Definitely, you have some space to work with.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure the position is very close to equal, but it just feels like practically it's a tiny bit easier to play for white because, yeah, white has the center and has, like you said, these options, knight f5. Also, gaining some space with d5 is an option. So this is definitely still a full game. Let's go to Gawain with the black pieces against Richard Palliser. So we left off around here, and we're talking a little bit about the problems black has to solve.
And also Gawain not being a Caro-Kann player.
Right.
In general.
And he played bishop h7, which I pointed out to open up the f5 square for the knight, put it there. Still, this knight can be sometimes a target. There are some variations where white even can go g4 and hit it. Now, Richard Palliser took on d5, and I'm not sure why he did that right now. Usually white can also wait with this, because in the end, black pretty much always has to take with the c-pawn, can never really go e takes d5. That would just allow too much of an onslaught here with the pawns pushing forward.
That also looks to be the first new move in the game.
Right. Yeah. A little bit unusual, because usually if you can wait with this decision to lift the tension in the center and to take on d5, you want to do this because it just keeps your options open. Maybe sometimes you want to go c5, or just keeping your options open doesn't hurt. So,
of interest to our English audience, there are a couple of Joe Gallagher games from this position.
Right, where's Joe Gallagher? Oh, he's living in Switzerland, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why he's not playing in the tournament. But maybe he could play, I don't know. Anyways,
he played bishop d2 there.
Right.
Rather, bishop b2.
Bishop b2, yeah, that's what we got in this game as well. Rook c8, rook c1, and
I mean, instead of taking on
d5.
d5.
Okay. Yeah, this would also make a lot of sense, because, like I said, you can still do this later if you wish so.
Right.
But he wanted to fix the pawn structure already. Bishop d3 now. And yeah, now the bishop will probably develop. Push will be, to b4 doesn't really make sense. White can just hit it with a3, and you don't want to take on c3. Dark square bishop is quite an asset. So here you would need to retreat, and then I'm not sure if provoking a3 makes a lot of sense. Probably what Jones is thinking about, sometimes there are these options to go g4 here. I could imagine this being a move, absolutely. Knight h4, and now taking on h7, stopping black from castling. Then taking on h4. And now just playing something like f4, f5 potentially. Here f4 looks good. You cannot go h5 here because I could lock in your bishop. So you would probably need to play bishop e7, and then I'm very quick. So, and you cannot cast anymore. That's a huge,
it's kind of important detail, yeah.
Yeah, very important detail. So this could go wrong really quickly here for black. So probably bishop e7, not a good move to play, because it really runs into g4. But then the question is, what does black play? And this is what we were talking about earlier. Those are the problems black has to solve. If black could get in here, 2 moves, bishop e7, castle, then he would be completely fine. But white is not giving him that much time.
So bishop could also go to b4.
Bishop could go to b4. That would allow you to still have this square available. But Yeah, here after a3. I was saying you don't want to take on c3, and bishop a5 is also just, that doesn't look right. Just doesn't look right. And besides a3 here, white can still think about this. Even here, it wouldn't be as good because you still have the knight in the way, and it takes much longer to go f4, f5. But even this is interesting. But here, I don't like it as much for white. But just a3, yeah.
So yeah, interesting. Jones now thinking over 9 minutes. Back on after.
In this position.
Yeah, in this position after bishop d3. So we'll see what he comes up with. Let's jump over to the 10 Eggleston game. This one we're looking at partly for the Norm Hunt.
The Norm Hunt, yeah, for Justin Tan, who needs a win. And I think he's in good shape here. So actually this move bishop g5 that we looked at briefly happened. Now, he didn't exchange bishops. Bishop f2, rook c8. Now king h2. And the point apparently is moving the bishop back to g1. It's a very slow play here by Justin. I'm not sure how much that is helping him, but interesting. And still for black the issue is, and this knight is just completely misplaced and this pawn is weak. So I think I do like what white is doing here. Not quite sure what his next moves are, but same is true for black, who just made kind of a useful waiting move, king g7. Also potentially aimed against any ideas of white going h4, h5. In that case, now you could answer this with a move like rook h8. So white needs to do something here. I would like to play maybe, even though it looks odd, but we saw the similar idea in the game between Adams and Aggie. Also, Adams, several points in the game, protected the pawn on c2 to prepare knight d5. And this looks very sensible because you cannot really stop knight d5. And if I would be happy to exchange my knight against this bishop on b7 and obtain a bishop pair and take back with the queen.
Yeah, it just looks horrible to block your bishop in like that. Yeah, I guess there's no way. If there's no way for black to take advantage of it, it's going to come out again later. So.
I wonder if black can do anything here concretely, but you know, you're so passive with this knight on e8. What are your ideas anyway? Like, I mean, the usual move would be to play queen to c7, but then I just play knight d5. You could move your queen here, but no, you don't want to do this. No, you do need to take, and I take with the queen. And then I can, you know, maybe double on the f-file, fh4. And the whole time you're really tied to defending this pawn, which is really interrupting your piece harmony, or disturbing, rather, your piece harmony. So Justin is looking good.
Well, one thing I like about these top 4 games is that they're all quite different and yet quite exciting. They look like we have a lot of interesting middle games ahead of us as players have slowed down here.
Actually, and Brahman is asking a very interesting question, but he's also, if we go back here real quick, he played h5, which is aimed against g4. And Brahman is saying, please check out knight takes d5. Gawain might have missed it, but that's a crazy move, and I'm struggling to understand this move. I see there are some lines where the knight on f5 might be vulnerable, but let's just say black takes back, and this is, you know, I'm not even seeing where we're going with this. So yeah, I cannot imagine Richard finding this. We can check this out real quick with the engine, why this works.
Knight G5
Knight
is
G5
trick.
this is amazing. I mean, to find this, well, the pawn now is black cannot take because the rook is
on
hanging.
C8.
And if rook takes c1 first, then not even bishop takes queen takes c1, but bishop takes c1 is stronger. Now threatening knight takes h7. Black cannot move the knight, of course, because then the bishop would still hang. And after bishop g6, the pawn is e6, opening the position against the black king. And this is promising quite a tremendous attack. But I do not see this happen.
Well, and somehow just the idea of giving up one knight and then putting your other knight on pre is something that would be hard to wrap your head around in visualization
This is
terms.
such a tough move to play, and Muppet is saying this same thing. Knight takes d5, very hard to find, very calm move. I mean, I could see a 2700 player, 2600 player find this, and with all due respect to Richard, I think this is very difficult to find. But who knows? He might surprise us all. But yeah, you also need a lot of faith, because it's not clear really to see all the consequences, and it is of course connected with a lot of risk as well. But indeed, it looks really strong. Yeah. Once again, these Caro-Kanns really interesting, and this can happen certainly if black isn't finishing his development, and for white finding ways to open up the position like that and even sacrificing a piece, quite amazing. So we shall see if that actually happens on the board.
Yeah, why don't we take a brief pause, and we have Richard here thinking about 6 minutes, and we'll see if he comes up with his shot. We'll just leave this up here.
Right.
And we'll be back with you for more coverage of the 11th and final round of the 2016 British Championship in a few minutes.
Yeah, we'll be back shortly. Stay tuned. And we're back. My name is Niclas Huschenbeth, and next to me is Macauley Peterson. This is the coverage of the British Chess Championship, and you can see I'm quite excited because Richard Palliser has played knight takes d5.
We had a little bet going here, and it looks like I lost.
Can you believe it? I really didn't see it coming. I said, I would maybe expect a 2700 player, 2600 player to find this beautiful sacrifice. And Gawain now is looking at this position, and he's probably a little bit scared because the variations we looked at already look quite promising for white. Here knight g5 is a nice move. White can also take on c8 first, also quite possible, but knight g5 immediately, threatening knight takes h7, and then of course picking up the knight on f5. The only sensible way to defend this really is to go bishop g6 now, or first taking on c1. Not sure if it makes a big difference, but in either case, white is always opening up the position with e6. And here,
and there's a lot to calculate here, but but he spent 22 minutes on this move before going for it, so you got to mention that he was pretty sure.
He was pretty sure, and it looks tempting. I mean, if we look at this position, bishop e7 would run immediately into bishop takes f5 and knight takes g7. And what else do you do here? King f7 probably. But now knight g5, rook e6. Yeah, just, of course he couldn't calculate all, right? He is also using his intuition, his knowledge or experience of having been a chess player for a very long time. And, this is what we play for as well. This is the most exciting chess. This is just fun to do.
I think we even actually called the knight takes d5 pawn on a sacrifice like, white player's favorite sacrifice or something recently on Chess24 on Twitter or in a news article. I can't remember.
Yeah, in general, people love sacrifices, and it's so much fun to play. And in general, also psychologically, it's easier to play if you're attacking. Gawain Jones now probably, he's not happy here.
Well, of course, usually the most famous kind of thematic knight takes d5 or knight d5 sacrifice is more in the Sicilian. You don't really think of that so much in the Caro-Kann, but
right. Yeah, this is unusual. I haven't seen this kind of motive before. But as people in the chat also are pointing out, it makes sense because black is so behind in development. Still needs 2 moves to finish and castle and get a king into safety. And that time white is using now to his advantage, and also with the last move played by Jones, h5, he has opened up the square g5 for the white knight. But still to find this move, even though, yes, it is in a position, yes, there are ideas against this knight on f5, not an easy thing to do. So really kudos to Richard Palliser, and this is definitely a game to keep our eyes on.
I see in the chat, Sandor Farkas, premium member, gave it 7 exclams.
7? That
yeah.
Seems like a little bit too much, but yes, it definitely deserves 2, I would say. Definitely deserves 2, and that is, well, the maximum you can give if you follow the chess notation rules. Let's check in with our top boards. Mickey Adams seems to be on a comfortable plus pawn here. We left around here. We said, yeah, bishop a6, that's what happened. Just putting more pressure on the pawn. b3 is not a move white wants to play. So Martin Brown was just like, okay, I'll give you the pawn and just hope for the best here. But this is, of course, quite a difficult position to play. You're just a pawn down for no compensation. And black's pieces are very well placed. This is just game over already against a player of Adams' class.
Well, and can you imagine we could be looking at a 10 out of 11 undefeated score from Adams.
This is just mind-blowing, right?
Yeah.
6 straight wins in a row then.
That's Caruana Sinkfield Cup territory.
Yeah, pretty much. Even though not much can compare to that performance. Which, of course, reminds us today the Sinkfield Cup is starting 8 p.m. tonight or 7 p.m. UK time.
Yep. And we'll be having live commentary in English,
4 different languages.
Spanish, German, and French.
4 different languages for you to choose. That's service, I would say. That's service.
Well, of course, yeah, the English will be coming from
Right.
on site in St. Louis from the Cheskoblenz Classic Center, and then we're taking care of the rest of the European crowd.
Pretty much, yeah. German, Spanish, and French.
In fact, Niclas is doing German. I don't think we mentioned that. We mentioned Fiona's doing the French. We're bringing in French Grandmaster Fabien Libashevsky, but Niclas is pulling a double shift today.
Yeah,
so,
it's going to be a long day in the office. So, any of you who also speak German, you're of course very welcome to provide some company when I do my first kind of solo show. I think I haven't done this before. I've done solo audio, but solo video I haven't done. But I can talk quite a bit, as you might have noticed already, so I'm not too afraid. But this will be interesting. Yeah.
Well, there's also there's the Spanish Championship is starting today. The French Championship is coming up in a week or so.
Oh wow!
So yeah, it's championship time of the year, I guess.
It is, yeah. Wow. So I guess Maxime Schillergraf not playing in the French Championship then. Yeah.
No, but a lot of the French potential commentators are. So we were lucky to get Fabien over here to
That's
Hamburg.
true. Yeah. All right. Queen C2 has been played. Now Rook AE8. And you know, sometimes people ask me, how do I win positions where I'm up material, or how do I convert an advantage? And I think usually what you just do, you slowly improve your position. And here Adams doesn't have to worry.
Doesn't have to hurry.
It doesn't have to worry and doesn't have to hurry. Yeah, actually, I think I want to say hurry, but sometimes I mix it up. Because he's in complete control. He has a beautiful knight on c4. His pieces are perfectly placed. So he will play it slow, exchange some pieces, and then get those pawns rolling eventually. As a general rule of thumb, which I always like to say, if you're up material, you want to exchange pieces. If you're down material, you want to exchange pawns. Well, pawns are also pieces, but you get the idea. You want to exchange minor piece and heavy piece if you're up material, because very simple. If we just imagine taking off all the pieces here except for the pawns, the king at the pawn game is just winning, right? So this is general rule of thumb. Of course, to every rule there are exceptions, but in general, that makes a lot of sense, because with every piece you exchange, you also exchange potential for your opponent to create play, to create counterplay, right? So Adams will just take this home very smoothly. There's no doubt about it. In this game, John Ems versus David Howell, we actually went down this line, c3, c5, but here John didn't play rook e1. He didn't go d4. He played rook e1. And problem was pointing out earlier, if d4, black can take on d4 and then just go d5 here, which is a really thematic kind of move to play in the center, and this seems to equalize for black.
I'll be right back. I'm just gonna get some power here.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So instead, John played rook e1, preparing a potential d4 move, and now rook e8, and now he played d4. And Howell just answered by playing queen c7. Because here, if c takes d4, c takes d4, now this idea doesn't work as well here. I think White can just take on e5 in one way or the other. Maybe like this would just work and win White a pawn. Even though it doesn't look as convincing. But it's just my feeling that somehow here, after d5, White could do something. So the engine says e takes d5, and now after knight takes d4, now rook takes e5. That's the way to do it and keep an extra pawn here. So that's why David played queen c7. But yeah, it feels like white is a little bit better. You have those options, as we described earlier, of going knight f5, of possibly closing the center by playing d5, having a long-term space advantage. This is really, a move I would clearly consider. Knight probably goes back to f8, and then play a move like knight f5. This actually looks quite unpleasant, because here you don't want to go g6. That would leave you in a very uncomfortable pin for one. And I'm just noticing there might be another problem. So this would be uncomfortable. But even more uncomfortable would be knight h6 check and knight g5 when you can't defend the pawn on f7 in any sensible way anymore. And after king takes h6, you lose the queen on c7. So d5 actually I do like for white right now. Knight f8 and just... because knight d8 cannot be the move. Knight f4, I can just take... And could this be? No, I cannot really see this happening. Maybe though. The pawn could be, the justification could be here black can play g6 immediately. Because otherwise I would just pick up this pawn on f4. But here g6 and my knight is a little bit out of squares. I could take on e7, but then you have immediately pressure on the pawn.
Well, and also also in general terms again, you don't really want to give up this beautiful knight on f5 for the lousy bishop on e7 unless there's something really concrete.
Yeah.
But this goes back, I mean, the whole d5...
e5,
Yeah, the whole d5 decision is just a very committal one. So I mean, you can see why he's spending quite some time here, over 10 minutes now. Whenever you're dramatically changing the character of the position, it's not something to be done lightly.
Yeah, definitely. This is also, for those of you who are watching from the beginning of the show, I talked briefly about critical moments. And this is another critical moment, changing the pawn structure. This is a long-term change to play d5. You can never go back and undo this. You can never take on e5 again.
Yep.
So this is something to... consider.
He could also be thinking a little bit about what does David Howell want out of this position,
right?
Because this is still one of the few games that I mean, irrespective of what's going on board one, we know that David has to win. So you could also think about what's going to make him the most uncomfortable.
Honestly, I think David is looking at Adam's position and he knows Mickey is just going to win. And then we have to remind ourselves of the standings where David is also 1 point ahead of the rest of the field. So that means he could secure his second place by drawing.
That's right. So he could be playing for the prize money also a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, the first place is gone. I mean, let's be honest. It is absolutely unimaginable that Mickey Adams loses this position against almost 500 points low-rated opponent being a pawn up. But of course for John, he could, winning this game, of course, there's a lot of prize money involved here, because if he wins this game, he ends up sharing second place with David. Of course, other people could also still end up on 7.
Yeah, we could end up with then a multi-way tie on 8 out of 10.
Right, on 8, yeah, that's what I mean. For example, Justin Tan could still, Justin Tan or Gawain Jones could also still make it to 8 out of 11. Yeah, 8 out of 11. Right. Now, he has played d5. Yeah, just looked attractive. I'm not quite sure what he's doing after knight f4, but there must be some good way here. Even if you just do this and go knight f1, even this should favor white.
So he ended up giving it a 12.5 minute thought.
Yeah, that's a decent amount of time. And Snorro is saying, Macaulay's as modest as a big kahuna at chess 24. Really nice to see him being the spare deluxe. So some kudos to you.
I just ignore chats that have my name in it. No.
No, I'm also quite happy to have you in front of the camera because a lot of people don't realize how much work goes behind setting all this up, producing these shows for you guys. And usually you just see the commentators, but there's so much action behind the camera, and really Macauley is doing an amazing job there. So it's kind of nice to bring you out and people see you and
Well, thank you for that. I'm actually really pleased that we're doing commentary on the British Championship. This is actually an event that I've been following myself for a number of years, and was interested in trying to get involved and help raise the profile of it a little bit, because it's if you look at what's been going on with the U.S. Championship, where I did my first webcasts actually back in 2009, 2010. And through 2013, I did the U.S. Championship webcasts. Those have really just improved and increased dramatically every year in every respect.
Yeah.
So for the as an American, with the special relationship, I felt a little bit of my duty to try to help out a little. No, but really, the British Championship is an amazing event. If you think about it, this is the 103rd edition. I mean, there just aren't national championships that have
such
many.
A long tradition,
such a long,
right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really remarkable, and it should be called out a little bit more as having such a great tradition. Of course, so many great players. I'm actually reading right now about a third of the way through the Paul Morphy biography by Lawson, and Morphy has just arrived in England to start trying to hunt down Howard Staunton. So it's also interesting to just think about the history that goes back here and into all of these great tournaments over so many decades.
Yeah, it is 103rd. That's just, I always, I always say this number, but if you think about how long ago this tournament, for how long it already has been in place, that's quite amazing. Let's go quickly back to Martin Brown versus Mickey Adams, because I think we're about to see some tactics here. I see this move, Queen F2, looks very tempting. I'm not sure how good it is, but it's certainly
spectacular.
I would like to play. The pawn is of course the weak white back rank. Here you cannot take because of checkmate, and also exchanging a pair of rooks. Well, that wouldn't be a good idea. So I think the only move, well, there's rook d1 maybe as well, but I want to suggest queen d1, and then I'm not sure how great this all was. Maybe I should just play the less spectacular rook takes e1 first, and then play queen f2, which also looks really nice. And I'm hitting the pawn on b2 as well. And yeah, I don't know what you're doing here. Maybe queen d1 or rook d1 probably. Let's say, and he has taken on e1. He probably wants to follow with queen f2.
Yeah, this looks perhaps over imminently, actually.
After queen f2,
yeah,
it's looking pretty badly, yeah? Queen d1, and just knight takes b2, and you just grab another pawn. Simple chess, right? So what did Pramod say? 10 moves? But where did he say so? After d5.
I'm sure he'll tell us.
Yeah, I think it will be close, Pramod. Not quite 10 moves, but almost. We shall see. We shall see. Right now, we still have this position, but queen f2 is so logical, and just queen e1 or rook d1, just pick up this pawn on b2. White is to take, and now the knight. It's very sad. Doesn't have a place to go.
No home.
Go to b1. Yeah. It's just very sad. So queen f2 is on the board, and I think this will be wrapped up quickly. Really, yeah. Nice chess by Mickey Adams, but today I think he profited a lot from his opening idea. This f5 surprised his opponent, and then his opponent went astray pretty early. And this is the kind of game you hope for in the last round of a championship like that. But he has done all the work previously, right? He has played amazing chess. He has beaten his two main competitors, Gawain Jones and David Hull. So he absolutely deserves, of course, then having an easier game in the last round. All right, we haven't checked in for a while with Justin Tan, who is playing for a lot today. He's playing, of course, to get into the prize ranks, as well as for his Grandmaster norm. He needs a win.
Now, we had looked at this, we had looked at a rook f2 move, but in a slightly different position with the bishop on g1. Instead, he decided to exchange the bishop first.
Yeah, and I don't like that, I have to be honest, because, here he moved his bishop away, avoiding the exchange. And now, a couple moves later, he brings the bishop back. That seems a bit inconsistent to me, and also it feels like this bishop is stronger than the bishop on g5. You're aiming directly at the pawn on b6, and this bishop is not really doing anything. At least that's how it felt like to me. So bishop e3, surprising move to my mind. But White is still keeping a lot of the advantages on his side, still the pressure on those pawns. But it feels like Black has alleviated some pressure at least. Has gotten rid of some pressure. Rook c5. Pressure, not pleasure. I'm sure I'll make a lot more slips
He's
in
getting
the hours to come.
Pleasure by alleviating pressure.
Yes, exactly. You saved me there. And now rook f2. But now even you're not threatening knight d5. That's the difference already. Because let's say Black just makes any move. Well, here it's even worse now because c2 is hanging. But my point was just that this would be completely fine for Black. You can just play f5, go knight f6, and no worries whatsoever.
Right, because of course now he's solved his biggest problem of the position, which is the pawn on d6.
Exactly.
And by virtue of exchanging the dark squared bishops, his other big problem in the position, the pawn on b6, is also no longer such an issue.
Absolutely. So I think Justin just wants to put the rook on d2 and keep the knight tight on his defending square on e8, but really the Black position doesn't strike me as that bad anymore. If you want to activate the rook, you can, for example, put it on h8. And here's a surprising move though. He just played rook c8 back. I think his idea is to play queen c7 followed by queen c5.
Exchange more pieces.
Yeah, and get the queen active and on better squares. And yeah, if you go into an endgame, Black would certainly be fine. But feels like to me almost as if Black is already fine because he has exchanged, because White has exchanged his dark squared bishop. I mean, now knight d5 certainly would be possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, even this position, taking back with the rook, okay, well, what do you do next? Well, here I can even now activate my knight again, play knight f6, or probably even better, play knight c7 and knight e6, and now I'm just ending up, I have the better minor piece, it feels like now. So
what a journey that knight would have gone on if he gets to d4.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know. I really don't like this move, bishop e3. Of course, I do like my move, rook f2. Not sure how good it would have been, but just feels like it would have kept more in the position. Maybe, you know what I'm thinking? Maybe he didn't like lines like this. I mean, I don't even know if he looked at rook f2. But maybe rook h8 followed by something like knight f6. But it doesn't look too scary. But at least now White couldn't play knight d5. Because takes, and now knight f6 followed by knight g4. Anyways, it's all wild speculation. We have this position on the board, and Justin feels like is farther away from the win he needs to get his GM norm.
And we have seen Adams taking on b2 already, so he's gone down the line that we looked at. After.
Yeah, I'm not seeing.
Yeah, we saw a
right
rook g1. Oh no, rook g1 is played now.
Oh, rook g1 is played now. But,
Sorry.
Here, knight takes b2 would be possible, of course. Another move that strongly comes to mind is to move bishop d4.
I apologize. I was looking at our analysis actually. So.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, bishop d4 looks
Bishop
fantastically
d4
strong.
is winning here.
It's just completely winning. The point is after rook d1, I think I'll just bring another piece into attack, and you cannot stop rook e1. It's very simple chess, and you can just resign here because it will be checkmate more or less. I mean, what do you do at h3? Rook e1 takes, of course. That doesn't take long to figure out.
Nice little pattern though.
Yeah. Now bishop d4 also the obvious move, and who knows? Probably might be right after all. That would be hilarious.
So who had Adams to win in their predictions?
I'm sure a lot of players. Let's be honest.
The battle for our predictions game prizes may come down to 2 through 4.
Did you also make predictions?
I did not.
Okay, because it's showing something there, but it's just the
shows
participants.
If you didn't play, it shows the current standings.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, he was the big favorite, being the only player in the field with above 2,700, of course. Being a veteran and being so experienced. But, yeah, you never know with Gawain and Howell around too. Of course, on a good day, they're absolutely capable of beating Mickey, but in this tournament, they weren't quite the opposite. Mickey beat them both, and then it's not a surprise to see him take the title. And Adams has a mate on 8 now. Yeah, I think rook e8 will be played, and probably Martin Braun will resign here. And Braun will be very happy, maybe. Could be exactly 10 moves from where Braun said here after d5. It will take 10 more moves for Mickey. Anyways, let's go to this game. This is the other exciting game. More so from the position because, well, the other game is just over. Richard Palliser has sacrificed a piece, and he's taken back on c1 with the queen, which was the natural move, feels like to me, at least. Having the queen on the open c-file, yeah, just seemed more natural than to take with the bishop, even though bishop preferred bishop takes the bishop. The engine preferred bishop takes c1. Now knight g5 has been played.
Still
and
strong?
Here, still strong, yeah. Here black really only has 2 moves at his disposal. g6 or bishop g6 to keep the piece, but g6 only by looking at you already know that this can't be the way to go. Well, I mean, you could, well, but here e6 looks very strong again. And now, of course, there are some additional options with the queen on the c-file. Queen f6, for example, queen c8 already, king e7, and rook e1, simply rook bishop a3 in a position. Any discovered checks, it's game over. So really, I'm pretty sure black has to play bishop g6. Well, but who knows actually. But okay, now still e6. And it feels it is a really difficult defensive task here for black. Let's cheat real quick and see what the engine suggests.
Yeah, well, it looks like e6 is extremely strong, maybe just winning.
Oh, so g6 is the only move here. Because of the bishop g6, yeah, e6 just wins on the spot. So g6, even though ugly, well, sometimes you just have to do a practical decision and play the only move that keeps you alive. Here after e6, you can just resign because it opens up the position. If black takes, knight takes e6, what do you do now? We just looked at this, queen c8 and the position in g6, and here, yeah, you lose your piece, and that's bad news. So g6 only move. There is also knight takes d4, which needs to be considered a little trick. When bishop takes h7, of course, would run into knight e2. But white can play queen f4, and that's quite a strong double attack, and white will regain the piece. And whenever just white regains the piece, here he's just winning, still having the lead in development, and all pieces out, it's over.
Keeping all the positional trumps.
Yeah, just regaining material.
The positional Donalds.
Yeah. Yeah, nowadays, whenever I say the word Trump, always comes to mind, of course.
It's terrible.
And here after g6, yeah, it's not as clear, in fact. We were looking at e6. Oh, really important resource for black. In this position, the move bishop h6. If you move queen b8, yeah, you would be in trouble here after rook e1, and the white attack is continuing quite nicely. But bishop h6 here, nice intermediate move. Hitting the queen on c1, when it's really not that clear at all what the position is like. So that's a move to spot for Gawain. If he wants to handle the white attack. So instead of playing e6 right away, white should actually take on f5 first. And then play e6, probably to eliminate this option of black going bishop h6. Now we go down the same line, but black doesn't have bishop h6, white could just take it. And now the only move is queen b8, absolute only move, otherwise it's +4. And then rook e1, king has to go out of the e file, and bishop e7 doesn't feel right. Knight c7, knight takes d5, yeah, among other things. So king f7. Okay, and this is not clear. We're having the engine on here right now because, yeah, we're lazy and don't want to calculate that much. But this is not that clear. Engine is saying bishop a3 here or knight g5. Knight g5 is the obvious move, of course, you would consider. But white doesn't have that much attacking potential. Still enough, rook, queen, knight. But also there are a lot of black pieces around his king. So not that easy here. Bishop a3, apparently the only move to keep the advantage. Okay, still not an easy position to play either way for black, but this game is not sealed yet by any means. Everything's possible, and I do expect Gawain to find g6 here, even though it is very ugly, but yeah, bishop g6, e6 is just too horrible. What he needs to do though, he needs to find this, or needs to spot this idea bishop h6, which is allowed by playing g6. All right. Where would you like to go next? Should we check in with some other games, or what? We could check in with this game. A lot has happened here, yeah?
Yeah, let's just whiz through back. We're also keeping an eye on the Adams game just for the sake of history here. It's now made in 6 with
yeah, we'll come there in a moment. And actually,
Adams to move, yeah.
Yeah. So what is this position? Just to briefly evaluate, we turn off the engine again. That means I have to think. Black has 2 pieces for the rook and is about to win the pawn on e4. But white has a passed pawn on the a file. And in general, a passed edge pawn, is that how you say that? I always wonder, I never have a native speaker with me. Is this how you call the pawns on the edge of the board?
I don't usually.
You just say a pawn?
Yeah, a pawn or a wing pawn.
Wing
maybe,
pawn.
But edge, not
Edge
to be
pawn?
confused with h.
Yeah. So you don't have a, but wing pawn could be any pawn on, or would it be on the a or h file?
No, I guess it doesn't have to be the very edge, but yeah, a flank pawn, an outside pass pawn, I guess would be the most common over here.
Yeah, because in German we have this specific word for a and h pawn. Anyways.
Edge pawn. No, we don't use that so
good.
much.
I won't use that anymore. Good to know. Never felt right anyway. I never hear anybody say it. I just translate it right from German. But this is the biggest enemy for minor pieces, really, when they are facing a rook. And I would say that the position is probably equal because this is a huge trump for white and probably helps him equalize. All right, let's check in with the Adams game. He's about to checkmate. It looks like knight e3 now on the board, threatening queen takes g2, and Martin Brown's still fighting, but it's a lost cause. No hope here. Bishop takes e3, just rook takes e3, king h4, but all comes with check, and then it's just checkmate already. Next move. Oh, not yet. Excuse me. There we have it.
So he can choose which way he wants to go down.
Pretty much. He can also take the rook when this would be, to my mind, a prettier mate, but yeah, it really doesn't matter. You can see the white pieces are all on the queen side, and that's bad news if you're facing an attack against your king, especially your queen. And actually, by playing this move, queen a4, a while back, he allowed this rather quick finish. But white, if you had played a move like, let's say queen f2, the game would have dragged on for much longer, even though there's no doubt that Adams would have brought this home. But yeah, in general, this might be a takeaway for our viewers. You want to keep your queen close to your king, especially in positions where there might an attack arise against your king. And then now...
Well, it's one of these sort of pseudo-active moves that you're saying, okay, well, maybe I can get some counterplay on the queen side.
Yeah, but way too slow and just runs into obvious counters. Yep. Oh, Danger Mouse saying we say rook pawns. Yeah, that makes sense. To call them rook pawns.
Yeah. Okay.
That works, I guess. Because otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's, well, it depends on whether or not it's passed. Yeah, you can, a rook pawn can be any time, yeah. Whereas in the end game, you're mainly thinking about it when it's an outside passer.
Yeah, so rook pass pawn?
Pass
I don't know if the passed rook pawn, okay.
But it's not a thing. I mean, it's not a...
Official.
It's not a phrase. I
Hmm.
mean,
Okay, anyways.
It's just description.
Anyways. Yeah, so here Martin Brown is probably considering to resign. He could still play rook d2 maybe, but yeah. Among other things, I could just take on c1 when unfortunately you cannot even take on d4 because of knight f5 check. He might still try rook d2 just in case there might be a perpetual here if queen takes c6. There is no perpetual, that's for sure. But he might still try this. Is there any better way to wrap this up? Maybe knight f5 again, yeah? King g4. And queen e3, queen h2. You name it pretty much. Yeah, queen g3 is...
Looks pretty convincing.
Looks really convincing. So, Mickey Adams about to be crowned as the
So maybe
champion.
Mickey could be taking a rare walk around from the board.
No.
You know, maybe if Martin wants to be the first to be able to congratulate him.
Oh, he certainly will be, no matter how long he's going to play. Well, unless Mickey's not on the board. No, okay. Well, anyways. Yeah, so this game will be over any time.
What a beautiful way to finish the tournament, though. I mean, this impressive mating attack to cap a 10 out of 11 performance.
10 out of 11. You know, let us check how much rating Mickey is winning.
That's
that would be interesting.
definitely going to be one for the history books.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, Mickey, of course, you know, is still in the top echelons and playing in these super tournaments. So yeah, it could be helpful for him rating wise too, for that matter, getting 11 out of 10 out of 11 rather.
Yeah. But also today, one has to say, you know how many points he wins today? 0.8.
Yeah. Today it's more about not losing points. It looks like he's up 10, so he'll be up 11 after this game.
Isn't that crazy? He
Yeah.
scores 10 out of
10
11.
of 11 points and picks up 11 rating points. Yeah, that is a
That's
little
just
crazy.
crazy. But that's what happens when you're up so high. And that also,
Yeah.
I mean, it tells you how strong these guys are, right? To keep their rating, to hold the rating, and even improve it further. Because they really cannot allow any missteps, misslips.
Yeah, well, after this tournament, he's knocking on the door of the top 20 again.
That's nice. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he belongs up there, really. He's been up there for a long time. But it's just, it's difficult. And I think I remember back in the day, or not back in the day, but a while ago, I don't know how it came up, but I heard, or maybe it was Adams in an interview, and he was just like saying, it's so much work because you always got to find new opening ideas and always keep working, and then you find an opening idea and maybe somebody else uses it first, or, well, then you use it once and then you got to find something fresh. And it's just so tough to stay on the top because everybody's working so hard and everybody's trying to get that edge.
Yeah, and yet you don't see all of the players advocating for playing chess 960 as a replacement. I mean, some of them will acknowledge that they enjoy playing chess 960 when tournaments do arise, and not having to spend hours in preparation and having this problem where you found something 3 months ago, and then by the time you actually get around to maybe being able to use it, somebody else beat you to it.
Right.
But yeah, that's just the nature of the sport. I mean, but this is, of course, this is true for all sports, and all professionals are just working really hard.
Right. Yeah, that's just what it is.
To stay at the top, you gotta put in the time.
That's what it is. Yeah. The higher you get, the harder it becomes. Really, the tougher it becomes. So, let's check in with John Ems, and we saw after d5 here. This was the last time we checked in with this game. Knight f8 was played, knight f5, knight g6 would not be a good idea, we pointed out, because of knight h6. So Howell plays queen d7, now h3, and knight g6.
And so h3 with the idea of providing a route for his knight into g4.
Yeah, this is a very typical idea in Roy Lopez, to also allow the queen to come closer and play knight g4, then possibly take back with the h-pawn. Let me use some green arrows here. And then go g3, king g2, and possibly have an attack on the h-file. And here, really this knight is quite annoying for black, because you cannot get rid of it so easily, right? And you cannot do the same thing. That's the white advantage. White has a dark squared bishop still, black too, but the f5 square is light squared, obviously, while the f4 square is dark squared. So white could always swap this knight off if it happens to go there, and that would not be advisable. That's the way. I was like, what's the ending there? Yeah, for black. So looks like quite a pleasant position and easy to play for white, honestly. I would certainly take white here.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, maybe, no, even if you go bishop f8 and just bishop g5 is annoying. White is just going to build up his attack here slowly, while where's black's counterplay? Of course you could try a5 and b4 and stuff like that, but it will take some time. And the next move for white are pretty simple. Queen f3. Sometimes you can even think about g4, g5, but it's of course a more committing decision. And there it is. There's the result. Martin Brown has resigned, and
Michael Adams, congratulations.
Yes, to an absolutely stunning performance. 10 out of 11. Winning his last 6 games. He had kind of a slow start with 2 draws in his first 5 games, and even being worse in some games in the beginning, but then he just took off, winning his last 6 games. And also, not only that he won them, but the way he won them.
Yeah, the game against Jones, it looked like
just played him. Domination. I was here again for the rounds 8 through 11, commentating, and in all those games was just completely smooth. No doubt that he would win. And that is quite difficult to accomplish, especially, I mean, he's playing against other grandmaster, and they all know how to play chess. So to make those players look like, well, as to just clearly dominate them in this way is really an amazing feat. So yeah, congratulations to Mickey Adams for an absolutely amazing performance.
So that means that, David Howell is now clearly playing for second place.
Yep, and David needs a draw to get second place, get sole second place. He has the shared second place for sure already because he's 1 point ahead of the field. But, of course, this is important for the prize money, and he would not like to lose this game, that's for sure. Who also doesn't want to lose is Gawain Jones, and he's defending well here. We pointed out here g6 must be played, and Gawain found it. And the point is that now e6, which was an inaccuracy by Palliser, can be answered by bishop h6. Very nice intermediate move.
Wow.
And now the position is really unclear. And this is just such a crucial move. Maybe Richard missed it. So that is why we said, with the help of the engine, we should mention white should take on f5 first and then play e6, which is a difficult decision to make, because you don't want to just give up your nice light square bishop, but that would have been better. Here after bishop h6, you need to move your queen. And yeah, probably keep it on a c file somewhere, queen c3. But now, what does black do? Probably still queen b8, because you always need to defend the... Or can you play queen f6 even? You usually need to defend the last rank, because otherwise the queen would come in and might come in here. Yeah, this doesn't look good for black. Of course, king f7, you lose this knight. So my idea was king e7 now, hitting the queen and threatening to take e6 next move, but unfortunately it's bishop a3 here. This is not quite clear yet. King takes e6. Now my point, of course, was to go rook e1, and then king f7, queen takes e7, and yeah, game over. But black can play knight e3 at this point.
Since he's
Still
got a couple of
attacking.
pieces here, too.
He got a couple of pieces, and he's attacking the white queen on c8. So that would be far from clear, in fact. I mean, even this we can look at. Queen c7 here, introducing another idea, queen d6. White will certainly take this piece on e3, but quite unclear. There might be bishop f4. Also, what I was wondering about, if white can maybe take on f5 with check here, but probably black can just take with the king here. Now g takes f5. This would be again very good for white. Or let's just say winning. And queen takes f5 would leave the rook on h8 on piece. So king takes. Now this one's hanging, but black can play queen e6. When, even though the king is very much exposed, on f5, doesn't look like white has any follow-ups here.
White's run out of pieces suddenly.
Yeah. Of course you can play on here, queen takes b7, but it feels like the worst is certainly over, and I could imagine black just being better here. So queen c3, maybe queen f6 is possible. It looks quite dangerous though for black. And then the other move that comes to mind, certainly a move, queen to b8.
Yeah, so now black just needs 2 moves to get his rook into play.
Right. And the nice thing is with the bishop on h6, you're covering g5 now. So if I play rook e1, you can just go king f7 and no problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knight g5 is not an issue. So maybe white should do something else here, like knight c7 and knight takes d5. That looks like more like it. And now it's good that you kept your bishop, because you can play bishop c4. But yeah, this doesn't strike me as clear anymore, or maybe here already good for black indeed. So Gawain really putting up a nice defensive.
Yeah, Pallister has 3 moves now, or a few different moves now for his queen. But let's jump over to the Tan game, because I saw a comment that he's now winning.
He's winning. Well, he's up a pawn certainly. So what happened? Rook c8 we saw. We said black looks fine here. Rook df1, bishop c6, and now h4. Bishop d7. Yeah, these last moves are a little bit surprising to me. Black's spending a lot of time getting the bishop to e6, but in the course of doing so, he's just losing a pawn on b8 without any apparent compensation. You cannot go knight f6. I can just take this off. Yeah, and this knight, of course, is stabilized on b6. If you go rook h8, there's even bishop h3 as a possible option. With this idea in the air, not rook f6, but taking on f7. I'm, surprised how this game evolved, really, because here it just looks like black is in terrible shape suddenly. It's kind of interesting how it's going back and forth. First we said white was doing really well, and then black came back, but now white is doing great. And here after rook h8 was actually played, and Santi is saying bishop h3 is 3.7 for white. This is unbelievable. Why did he play rook h8? Bishop h3 he probably missed.
Crashing in on f7?
Crashing in, there's just no way to defend it. Rook b7 maybe? But rook b7. Rook b7 still seems to hold for now, but if the engine says 3.7, that's quite a lot. That's more than a piece.
Yeah, well, then he's looking at re-rating the queen to try to attack that pawn with queen e2.
Yeah. Yep. And also you have some other targets here maybe. Queen g4 you can go. And I think he's clearly on his way to win this now. Actually, after queen g4, black can't defend the pawn anymore.
So we could be seeing both players picking up a GM norm in the tournament.
Yeah. And really, let me check in with the engine. I mean, this position we said black was completely fine. And we overestimated it for black, apparently. Still giving white a nice advantage here. So, yeah, maybe white was just better all along. And we just misevaluated it a little bit.
Well, he seems to have at least misevaluated the time factor in thinking that he had enough time to do all these
Yeah, this
bishop
is
moves.
just a very surprising maneuver, because knight d5, of course, immediately comes to mind once the bishop leaves, protecting d5, and how white just picks up a pawn for nothing. Of course, very nice also to stabilize the knight like that. And in the game, actually, we have a couple more moves. King g2 now on the board, just stepping out of any ideas like rook takes h4, or g5 potentially. Just doesn't want to have anything to do with that. And white is in complete control, controlling the only open file on the board, the F file, and has many targets. As we pointed out, can attack the pawn a6, pawn e6, is up a pawn already, can also think about pushing these pawns just forward. Black is very much struggling to create any counterplay. He is going to win this, and Justin, he might be a little bit nervous right now, but he also knows he's winning. He has enough time on the clock, 35 minutes, for 7 moves, so that's quite comfortable.
Yeah,
so
he can move, with a win, he can move to 8 points and even
That's
have
also
a
an
shot
important
at tying
factor.
for second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quite a result. Yeah.
Quite a result indeed.
Let's do this. Let's take another brief pause here, I think, now that we have a British champion. And when we come back, we'll catch up on some of the action on a few of the lower boards.
Right.
And stick with you to see the battle for second place after a few minutes. Thanks very much.
See you then.
Welcome back to our live coverage of the last 11th round of the British Championship. We already have a British champion, Michael Adams, but thanks those of you who are sticking with us here. And I have upgraded my beverage to coffee.
All right. I'm sticking with water for now.
And we're going to look at some chess. We're going to we'll check in with the remaining top few boards. And then work our way down and look at some of the more interesting positions from some of the lower boards.
Right. And here, during the break, I was checking out this game. And here in this position, we briefly said bishop f8. Well, I could just go bishop g5. And in fact, this would already give white a winning advantage here. Can you imagine?
No.
And yeah, it looks so... it is surprising because, well, white isn't up any material, but just this power of pieces already on the queen side, on the king side, and yeah, black is lacking any good moves here. And bishop g5 is such a natural move as well, so I'm really not sure what John Adams didn't like here, and I don't even know what David Howe wanted to do here, because the threat is very simple. I take an f6 and I have a positional dream position. Bishop e7, I can just take, queen takes e7, and I just play knight g4, queen f3. This is so bad already for black. So great chance missed by John Adams. Even after queen f3, he's in a very pleasant position. Here he went for his very typical knight h6, and queen takes f6. And Howell is betting on his counterplay here with f5, giving up a pawn on h6. Now queen h5, and yes, he is having some play, but I don't think it's enough compensation for the pawn. But certainly in a practical game, anything can happen. Probably black will fall with rook f8. Yeah.
Bishop f8 moment is an interesting time to look at the move times, because Howell thought for over 12 minutes on that move, but Ems played queen f3 in under 2 minutes.
Yeah. I'm really curious what David was going for after bishop f8, bishop g5, but I guess we'll never find out. Yeah, and very curious as well, queen f3, because bishop g5 seems so obvious. So there must have been something that we're not aware of that the players didn't like.
In case we have anybody watching on site, maybe you can go up and ask him and report back.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is of course the one downside of doing our commentary from Hamburg here rather than the venue, is that we don't get to hear from the players and pick their brains and find out what happened in some key moments. We're relying on your reports. I would really love to do this commentary from on site next year, perhaps. This year we did discuss it, but there were some logistical issues. Also, just being able to do a high definition webcast from the location was not necessarily feasible. But that's why we don't have a live video feed, and why we're not obviously having the players come and chat with us afterwards.
Oh, there's somebody suggesting a possible move after bishop g5. That knight takes e4. People are saying that, yeah, that makes sense, guys. That makes sense to have this knight takes e4 there. Now we need to figure out why how that could be refuted. Well, actually it's very simple, and doesn't take too long. Queen g4, threatening knight h6 check. Okay, this is what you need to see. But of course, if you take a few more seconds, you can tell it took like 4 or 5 seconds. Of course, it's different because I knew it, but then you can find this move pretty easily, threatening knight h6, picking up the queen as well as now attacking the knight, and knight f6 doesn't help. I first take the knight and then play knight h6. Well, okay, yeah, maybe that's why he thought queen f3 was just also very sensible, but he missed a big chance there. You know which game is really heating up? Richard Palliser, Gawain Jones, he sacrificed another piece.
Wow.
And we actually went down this line here that we briefly looked at. Bishop c4, and here's at b5. Looking great for black. But Richard playing knight c7 and promising, seriously, knight c7 doesn't make sense. Knight b6 was much better. At least picking up the rook on c8, I guess, is his point. But But knight c7, b takes c4, queen takes c4, king f8 been played. And now what's the follow-up? What is the follow-up for Richard Palliser? I think he has invested too much.
So if we give a check, where is the king going?
Knight e6, probably just to g8. Because I'm attacking your queen now. I think that might be just lost here. And Cliff the Red Devil is also saying, hard to believe that Palliser would lose this game after this gorgeous knight takes d5 move. I added gorgeous. Yeah, and went downhill so quickly, it feels like. And yeah, seeing the engine evaluation on the other on our laptop there, and it's just winning for black. Knight e6 check. Yeah, not king g8, but I think king g8 probably also works, because queen d5, just knight f6. Well, here maybe knight c5 would be still an issue, and white can pick up the knight on d7. But just king e7 here, and probably just putting the king on f6. Actually, that seems very simple. Bishop a3 check, and king f6, and no more checks. And I'm up 2 pieces. Queen d5. Knight b6, for example. But here it feels like already black has several choices. Knight b6 looks very good though. There's no good check. Of course you can play queen e4, but you're down 2 pieces, and that won't end well. Yeah, very unfortunate. Beautiful move here by Richard Palliser. Also very ambitious and courageous, and unfortunate to see him go down like that. Here it seems bishop takes c1 was better, but that is again another difficult move to play, because queen takes c1 is so logical, having a queen on the open c-file. But among other things, I think the point is that in this line, when we compare it to what happened in the game, here black doesn't have any bishop h6, which was really the crucial tempo. Key defensive resource, covering g5, getting another piece out. That was just so key. And Gawain found it. He's a top player. And now he's looking good. He's going to win. Also put himself on 8.
Yeah, so he's going to move into a potential tie for second, depending on, well, if David can manage a draw or not.
Right. And who's also looking good here, very good, is Justin Tan, who has just reached time control. Not that it matters, he has 26 minutes. No counterplay by black, and I also like his different king moves here. He just played king g1 just to get out of this pin. Was maybe no need for it, but why not? Rook b7, just slowly improving, goes back here, now brings the king closer again, brings the king closer. You can see black's just waiting, moving the rook back and forth, and white still improving his position. And he's enjoying this. Look at this knight, so dominant. The queen cannot even really get into play, covering all the squares here. Yeah, it's just a matter of time.
Just looking for the final breakthrough.
Yeah, I mean, I could, well, I was just thinking queen g5, but you don't want to give the e4 pawn. But probably he will just play king g3. Yeah, that's what just happened. King g3. This is the current position. And then go h5 would be my guess. h5. Black obviously cannot take. That would be a disaster here. Immediate checkmate. And you know, if you keep waiting, you can't wait forever. There must be some decisive tactic at some point. Trying to find.
Did you say a tactic?
A tactic.
As in attack and tactic?
No, that wasn't on.
Oh, I think that's a great new term you coined there.
Tactic.
It's not a tactic; it's an tactic.
Yeah, I see. That could work. I was looking. I want to play queen g5, of course, but it is always answered with queen takes e4 right now. So I was even considering a move like knight d5. Yeah, just
That's
to
an
block
tactic.
this. Yeah. And then go queen g5, but here I didn't see the immediate follow-up, even though quite possibly there's one. But in either case, in this position after king g3, David Eggleston played queen c7. And he probably wants to get his queen back closer, but now White could play this move queen g5 again.
Well, Ninja Mutant Hedgehog says Tan is playing like Adams. And I just wanted to say Ninja Mutant Hedgehog.
Yeah. Yeah, actually it is, there was a game earlier in the tournament, I think like round 4, where it was a similar situation. Adams just having complete control in his game against Richard Pert and could just take all the time in the world to improve his position and then just deliver the final blow. And I think
King
absolutely
H2, King H2, King H3.
yeah, exactly. And it's so nice if there's no counterplay and your opponent's just waiting. You have so much time. You can really make sure you figure this out. And of course, just then he wants to win to get his GM norm, but he doesn't care how quickly he will win, as long as he wins. Yeah. Well, queen g5. Probably black would go queen e7, but yeah. I mean, even all the endgames are just completely lost, of course. But here you might still need to do some work. Also b5 is an option what can consider now, in fact. I quite like b5. Because with the queen on c6, of course, black could always take. But now I'm about ready to get a pass a pawn. Rook a7 runs into knight d5 already, followed by b6.
That's a nice trick.
If it works. I mean, you have to watch out for moves like that, yeah? But this is hanging with check. My pawn was here to suddenly checkmate him in 2 moves. So you still need to be careful, but this seems to work, and then probably black has to take, and I take back. And I have another very nice asset here to connect it past pawns.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is looking obviously completely winning. Just a matter of time here.
Okay, well, we did promise to have a look down at some of the lower boards.
Yeah,
So
let's just go through them
have a glance.
and see what's happening.
Interesting endgame.
Yeah, I was saying earlier that would be a draw, but right now Pramod is pointing out Mark Hepton is winning a draw on endgame. Looks like 2 bishops make people nervous. Yeah, those 2 bishops would make me nervous as well.
Talk about getting in your face.
Yeah. Okay, probably black just brings the king close. It's not simple yet to finish this off. Because, of course, you gotta keep your eyes on this pawn. If you play c4, that would allow white immediately to advance. And then you can advance right now. So, not simple. But probably bringing the king closer makes sense. Even though it allows some checks, but
then
this
it's
is
driving the
helping.
king to where he wants to go anyway.
Yeah, most likely. Okay. Alright. So we're expecting Mark Hepton to somehow bring this home.
He has played king e5.
Yeah, makes sense. This game, let's make a quick pawn count. Pawns are equal, but looks nice for black indeed. With the passed rook pawn or wing pawn here on a5. If a4, the rook can only go to b4. And sometimes you might even have ideas like this. Go b4, and if c takes b4, then go a4. And I actually quite like this. Unless... No, I really like this. I mean, if rook c3, now I can just take on b4. I've made some nice progress. And if b5, I can also just take here, even though there might be knight takes a4 now. This is of course tricky. When after rook takes b3, rook takes b3, the rook is hanging on b8, which means I don't have time to take on a4.
What about taking on b3 and then trying to play knight d2? After that, and that line.
Well, here your rook is hanging.
Yeah,
with
taking on b3.
Oh, taking on b3, yeah. And then knight d2. You want to checkmate me, but
Your knight's kind of off sides, but
Yeah,
you just come back, and then
I
you
can
control
just-
f3, and then there's nothing.
yeah, I think
E4
this works.
is not quite where I want it to be with my knight.
nope, that would have turned out badly. But certainly black is absolutely fine, even if I play b4 and take back with the pawn or the rook. Black's certainly having a chance here because he has the passed pawn, but some problems to be solved to win this. Alright, let's keep on going. This game is over. Thomas Fodor against Keith Arkell. Here, White is just winning this piece on c8, which is why Keith resigned, and Fodor not having a great tournament, taking a couple of losses, but like I said,
Well, it moves to 7.5.
moves to 7.5 at least, finishing up in a nice way. And where is he? Yeah, he could actually still take some prize money.
Yep.
Still losing 12 rating points, but he finished with a streak of 3.5 out of 4, which at least is consoling to him, and also possibly getting into the prize ranks is nice. Next game, Danny Gomali against Peter Batchelor, and Danny Gomali, he likes to sacrifice stuff. Really looks like he does. He sacrificed an exchange quite early already here. Probably, maybe it wasn't a sacrifice in fact, but he lost the exchange rather, I should say, and is now trying to create chances against the Black King. And he's creating some chance here with the bishops. Bishop h3 now hitting f5. Yeah, Black has to be careful here. Queen d7, I can play queen f3, for example, hit this pawn again. But maybe just queen e6 here, hitting the bishop. If the bishop retreats, I can always protect my pawn with rook f8. And if queen h5, I might be able to play queen g6, which is a nice defensive move. And black is solving his problems. Yeah, I think black is better, but the weak king, of course, and the bishops, once again, would make me a little nervous here as black. So
He's also down
not
to about
clear.
9 minutes for his last 8 moves.
That could be a factor as well. Certainly not an easy position to play.
Let's jump down to the Jovanka Hosika game
That looks
because
interesting, yeah?
she is now trying to wrap up the British Women's Prize, which
And I
is
think she's just about to do so, yeah?
£1,000.
Yeah, here,
Yeah.
this is game over. Knight g3 is a threat, and if you stop knight g3, if you go knight e4, then knight g3 is coming anyway. And now bishop takes, and you have a different checkmate problem on f2. That's why it was important to exchange the knight on e4 first, so it doesn't cover the square on f2. And yeah, that's a little bit much to deal with. Or in other words, impossible to deal with bishop takes h5, same story. So it looks like it was a really nice attack by Jovanka. Let's just go through the
Yeah,
last
we can go
couple of
back a
moves.
little bit.
Here, king h1, knight h5. Now just taking f3. Actually, to be honest, she didn't even sacrifice anything up to this point after bishop takes g6. Queen takes h3 was just so obvious already. And In fact, now knight e4 on the board, knight g3, and this is made in a couple of moves.
So it looks like the real mistake came earlier,
Much
back
earlier,
on move
yeah.
18 or so even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, here it is now allowing this attack, probably bishop h2 and knight h5 is just too much. Yep. So I think nice tournament by Jovanka.
And she has one.
And she has one that puts her on 7 out of 11. Yeah. And she has won the women's prize. And also the title.
She's the British champion, British women's champion.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see what else is going on here. This is looking pretty good for white. Nice bishop. Look how this bishop is controlling the knight. And of course the pawn a4 is poised to fall. This looks about winning for white. And this position looks also pretty nice for white. Always the bishop against the knight scenario here. Alright, should we return to the top boards, or would you like to?
Yeah, let's go back and see how David Howell's doing.
David still a pawn down. And a4 just played by John Ems. And here time might be a factor indeed. John Ems down to 7.5 minutes. And Howell, you might say, surprisingly
way up on the clock.
up on the clock, but this time a little bit struggling with the position. Yeah. But certainly still chances for him to, well, win or draw. He needs a draw to secure his second place because he is 1 point behind, and it looks like Gawain Jones and Justin Tan will definitely
Get up to 8.
get up
As
to
well.
8. Exactly. So David needs a draw to secure sole second place. Yeah, here after a4, I think John Ems' idea is obviously to open the a file of a takes b5. So maybe black can just take it off, even though it's an ugly move. But you're also possibly having some play against this b pawn. Alternatively, you could also go b4. But in either case, here also you're opening up another file, and that's what white wants. White wants to create some play here on an open file, especially since the black king is also a little bit open and weak.
And here he can't grab the a pawn because the rook invades with check.
Yeah, right, I didn't see that, but yeah, this would be devastating now.
Rook f7 takes and takes on h7.
Yeah, game over. So David might take on a4. I don't know if knight f4 is doing anything. Could be also a move, yeah. Queen g5, just king h8, now introducing this threat. So maybe white doesn't even help black like that and just plays queen h4. And then might be ready to kick this knight out again with g3.
Yeah, well, we talked about black not having the chance to get a knight into f4 earlier in the
Now he
game.
managed, yeah.
But now it's a different story.
But still, the white position is very solid. You see, there are not a lot of weaknesses. And of course, black is compensating a little bit with the active play and some ideas with knight f4 on the f file, but not easy. Not easy. All right, let's go to Richard Pelser against Gawain Jones. We left off.
We had knight e6 check.
Oh, we said
looked
king
at.
e7.
Uh-huh.
But king e8 also makes sense, avoiding any checks here. Knight c5 back, knight takes, d takes, and king moves off the e-file. And now queen e6. But it just feels like this can't be enough. bishop g7, bishop a3.
Black, of course, happy to exchange any pieces.
Right. Now c6 is of course a strong threat, but just bishop d4, vacating the square g7 for the king, and I think white can pretty much resign. c6, just king g7. The king is super safe now, of course. This is a very nice construction.
So he's got one more check on d7.
Yeah, one more check, but I can go. Should probably go to h8.
Just to stay off of this diagonal.
Yeah, king h7, h6, bishop c1. I don't have to deal with. But just stay on this diagonal. The bishop is, of course, now controlling everything here, and this pawn isn't going anywhere. And yeah, Gawain is going to wrap this up in a couple of moves. Yeah, nice comeback, good defense by Gawain, and then taking the full point. d5. I think this desperation here.
Yeah.
Justin played queen f2, is ready to move the rook to f8, invading. Queen e7 probably would not help a lot. Of course you're threatening queen takes h4, but I can deal with this rather easily. Just play g5. And, you know, somehow we might get in a situation where black almost is in Zugzwang already. And, yeah. White is just in so complete control, but d5?
Just trying something. But
yeah, I don't know what though. If I take, does he want to go knight d6? But even if I just go queen e3 here, it's just 2 pawns now, and obviously the knight is not unhappy on d5 either. Nice, very, very nice outpost. Yeah, so this game is probably over soon. Of course, I mean, even e takes d5, you could play, even though you don't want to calculate any of these things. Obviously, there's no need. But even this would probably be possible.
Well, even rook f8 looks to be very strong.
Still rook f8, yeah? Yeah, I mean, d5 didn't stop rook f8, and now just threatening to exchange and come in there. Here, Tan's only task is to find the win that he's most comfortable with. I like rook f8, it seems really simple. Because, yeah, black's not threatening anything. Of course, you might need to check knight d6 though, but okay, it's just queen f6. And then there's really nothing else. He has played rook f8, yeah. It's simple. What can black do? Queen e7. But still, I just take queen f8. Can I exchange because the knight is falling, so king h7, and now I think I'm very happy to just take here, or take on d5 immediately. Doesn't really matter. Queen e7 has been played, and we are most likely go down this line. Here, I can even think about moves like knight c8. That might be quite nice. But no necessity, obviously, to do something like that. Might just work as well, but queen f8 is simple. King h7, and now just take on d5. 2 pawns. Yeah. Game over.
So Justin Tan will be getting his Grandmaster norm.
Yep, as far as we understood, yeah.
Moving up to 8 out of 11.
Yeah, and great tournament for him. I mean, he only lost against Adams, drew against Gawain and Howell, and then beat Mark Hampton and drew some more games against Grandmaster, and now another win would give him a Grandmaster Norm. I believe his first, but I'm not completely sure. Yeah. What is Mark Hapton doing in the meantime? He brought the king as we expected. Now rook a8, obviously with the idea to push the pawn. Yeah, and if I go c4 here, that could end up... Well, even this is possible. Now I don't want to go c3, that would be a bad idea. So I have rook d8. Well, even c3, no. Here white can go a7. And... But hold on, c2? But now rook c8. And this pawn suddenly might be queening. Well, unless I play bishop e4. But now, unfortunately, I'm losing my pawn on c2 and still keeping this one. That would have gone all wrong. So black has to use some caution here still, instead of playing c2. No, here it's already too late. Or now here still black could play bishop e4, in fact. But this is all already too complicated, feels like. Rook d8. Now you don't want to go king e5 because of rook e8 and rook takes e4.
You also can't play bishop d5 because of queens.
Right. I was seeing... No, this would be lost. But you can go king c4 when white doesn't want a queen now. Because then here he would lose the rook against the pawn. And black would win. So after king c4... The question is if black can find a spot for his king, really, and doesn't look like he can.
If he goes to d3?
Then now bishop d4. Yeah, that's the way to go, yes. And now c2, and here even black is queening.
Yeah. Because
rook c8, bishop c3, check. Yeah. And he has gone c4. He might have just calculated this to the end, even though, I mean, you have to be very, very, very sure here. Of course, here you could still probably bail out with other moves, like bishop e4 now. But I think his intent is to go c3. But this is... Give rook d8 now. No, okay, here I'm always just covering a7 already.
Right,
so that's no problem. And I can, if I need to, I can go to c2.
Like there you could even maybe go to a2 even, because he's not queening.
Even to a2. But here maybe a7. I always have to watch out for things like that.
And then
rook a8. But here...
c2.
c2, but I can take... This might also win, yeah. It's just... You gotta be always careful. We go
You have
down
to calculate
this
one.
Yeah, but this is winning because here white has to move the pawn, but she doesn't want to.
That would be pretty.
Yeah. But yeah, the most critical line seems to be this. And now here it's important not to play c2 because of rook c8. When indeed white is might be winning, who knows. But to play simply bishop e4. And then the point is that always c2, c1 is coming.
So they're telling us bishop c4 instead of bishop e4 after rook c8.
After rook c8? I don't know at which point. I think we had this already. Or
We looked at this.
yeah, we might have. Bishop c4 instead of bishop e4. Well, not here, I'm pretty sure. Because then white would just queen. Rook d8 and a8. Yeah, anyways, this seems to be winning for black, just has to be a little bit careful. Oh, hold on, I think they're saying c2. Oh, here.
Shielding the pawn this way.
Oh, that's nice, and of course simpler. Yep, and white can queen, you know, that doesn't help much.
Not with those two bishops.
And even rook takes c4 wouldn't help. Black queens with check and still delivers checkmate. So yeah, Mark
That's
probably
also
just
a nice line, yeah.
yeah, Mark just calculated this, and will when a6 is on the board, Mark will go c3. So it's pretty straightforward line to go. Down rook d8, I guess it's the only move to still try, but here, yeah. I mean, even if I hide over here, it doesn't really matter. You can never sacrifice, besides bishop e4, you even have c2 here, and if you force me to g2, well, now what? I'll just play c2, c1, and that's it.
Well, Richard Palliser was in for a penny, in for a pound, and gave up his queen before now, just a moment ago, finally resigning.
Yeah. Here, rook d7. Yeah, c takes c7, of course, doesn't work. Black can just take on d4. And yeah, that's it, bishop e7. Even if white was to get the queen, it would be still piece down, but he doesn't even get the queen. So rook takes c7 and queen c8. Last trick to avoid c7 followed by rook d8, but queen c8 makes it all very clear. Important also here that, well, not that important, but g7 is covered, and that's it.
So Gawain Jones, first to move to
8
catch
points.
David Howell on 8 points.
And putting pressure on David Howell to not lose his game. So let's check in with David Howell again. So we went down this line, knight f4, queen f3, takes a4, he took an a4 after all. Knight f1, regrouping the knight makes a lot of sense, I like this. Queen takes e4, and now queen f7, and rook f1. But hold on, I think here, what's going on? d5 saying? According to the engines, black has equalized. Queen f7 was a nice multi-purpose move because suddenly, you know, black's kind of mirroring what white did earlier, knight h6, now knight takes h3 is a threat. If white was, for example, to take on a4, black could take here, and take here. That would be quite strong. So that's why Richard played rook f1. Now, black probably doesn't want to take immediately on d5. Because here white could just play rook fd1, pick up the pawn on d6. You wouldn't take on a4. This pawn d6 is much more important to create more weaknesses, because if you get rid of the pawn on d6, obviously you have isolated pawns all over the place. So that would be great for white. But instead the computer is giving the slightly surprising move, rook f to b8.
Going the other way.
Going the other way, and that's a difficult move to play.
Yeah.
Because, well, the rook was well placed on f8, right? Just created this threat.
Certainly would have some shock value, which could come in handy when your opponent is down to 3 minutes.
Yeah, but you would rather, I mean, it would be so much more logical to move this rook. That the problem is here that white can just pick up the pawn and pick up this pawn, and he's not being punished for it, because black doesn't have anything here. Knight takes h3, for example, wouldn't really work, because here white can just retreat with the rook, I think, and there's no follow-up for black.
So there's a certain logic to it then.
Yeah, but this is really tough move to play.
You're thinking that you're attacking on the king side, and then suddenly you're going to switch gears and attack on the queen side.
Right. Here, yeah, computer wants to go rook a2. Well, you do need to defend this pawn somehow. Now if you play rook takes a4, rook takes b2, that would just allow me to activate my rook, bring it to second rank, and have a passed a pawn as well, still targeting the pawn d5, and the pawn count is equal again. So
what if we
news.
just try to sit as white?
Yeah, if we just try to sit, and now, and he has played rook a b8, which is the human move certainly, but not the best move. Here computer want to go rook b6 and then bring this rook over again, which is paradoxical to me as well. So yeah, this is just calm stuff, but a human plays rook a b8. But now, after rook takes a4, it seems like white is better again, if we can trust the computer, which usually we can. This line we just looked at, rook takes b2 here. Is there anything else for black? Once again, queen takes d5 or knight takes d5. Well, knight takes d5 is probably answered by just rook takes a6 as well here, hitting the d6 pawn. And all these lines, what you need to consider with the queens on the board as well, is that always the white king is much safer as the black king. That can be a crucial factor. But maybe he wants to do something like this, and now, just defend the pawn on d6, rook d8. But yeah, would be a little bit passive.
Well, he certainly would do well to force Ems to come up with a couple of good moves, given the time situation.
Right, Ems down to 2 minutes for
5 more moves, or 6 more moves.
7 even, I think. This is the current position of the rook a8. Rook takes a4 is pretty straightforward. You just have to realize that here, and he played rook takes a4, that here you don't need to worry about rook takes b2 because you can just take another pawn. And there's no knight takes h3. Rook takes b2 on the board, and yeah, rook takes a6 seems very logical. Black can take on d5 though, after that. Probably this is his idea, to just simplify and secure the draw.
Yeah, and of course they are gaining 30 seconds per move as well, so...
Yeah, that's of course important, otherwise you would be in more trouble.
Although, you know, in the Sinkfield Cup, starting in a couple hours, there's no 30-second increment until move 41.
Yeah, and that can really lead to some crazy situations. It's nice for commentators because it gets really exciting around the 3.5, 45 minutes in, 3 hours 45 minutes in. For players, it can be quite stressful. Stressful.
Well, and also just the adjustment, because you're oftentimes coming from tournaments that have the increment or not have the increment, and you have to kind of, especially in the early rounds, I would say in the first couple of rounds, you see the players really needing to try to adjust to the new situation of having no increment.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's always like some tournaments have it, some tournaments don't. Actually, we were talking about it with, I don't know. Well, maybe with Jan, I talked about it in the show.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at Bilbao, that's even a whole other kettle of fish, because they have an increment, but
only after.
Also later, but also just they have shorter time overall. So it's even one of the shortest classical controls that we see in the.
Didn't they have 1.5 hours for the first 40 moves?
Yeah.
And then only after move 4 did they get an increment.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of this either, really, where you first start without an increment and then get it later.
And the converse is, I guess you could say, Dortmund, which has this third time control. So
time control.
That's why you saw a couple of Kramnik games, especially in rounds 5 and 6,
going 7 hours,
almost 8 hours, 7.5 hours.
Lazy piano Kramnik.
And Kramnik Caruana the day before that was also 6.5 hours or something. So
Kramnik has a lot of stamina.
Yeah, well, and Kramnik, of course, then having to withdraw from the Sinkfield Cup fairly late, although not not due to anything that happened in Dortmund, but due to a longer-standing issue with his back.
It's unfortunate.
And so, yeah, he will be. He'll be hard pressed to be competing in the Grand Tour points, having missed this one. In fact, he may be just out of it then.
Has he played any?
He played in Leuven and Paris, but not well. And they don't count all of your tournaments, but they count. They count.
Right.
2 of them. So yeah.
No. Yeah. He won't be doing well then. Yeah. Anyways, it's up to the tournament organizers, and of course for the Sinquefield Cup, it adds a lot of excitement, like we said, to have no increment, because I remember this famous game, famous for its time scoring really, between Caruana and Carlsen, where both players were below 10 seconds. And it was just intense, of course. Just had to blitz out the moves to not lose on time. It's just crazy. But for the players, it can be quite stressful. So this is the current position on the board. And here, black should indeed take on d5. But would still need to defend an unpleasant endgame after queen takes not e5 but d5. And here maybe just rook takes d6, knight takes c3 and rook c6, which might end up picking up a pawn for white, because rook b5, probably go rook c1, and you would need to play knight a4 if you want to hang on to your pawn.
Knight e4.
Knight e4. Yeah, this is looking good for white, of course.
Well, of course, still not very many pawns left on the board.
Not a lot, but this pawn would. If this pawn was on g7, it would be much better for black. And indeed, he's not going for this. He's not going for the endgame where he would just suffer. He's playing queen e7. But now, white just has, again, an extra pawn. Can play c4 simply, secure this pawn.
He's got to try to consolidate and make it to move 40.
Yeah, I think this is also Hao's reasoning. That's why he doesn't want to exchange queens, because that then would have been really easy to play. But yeah, probably he's just saying, well, let's see what white does. Maybe, sometimes you just play a waiting move like that and hope your opponent will fall into some kind of trap. And really, c4 is one of the computer's moves, but the next 2 moves suggested by a computer, king h2 or king h1. And
those are not the kind of moves that you're looking at with your clock ticking down.
Right. And I think it's also about maybe black is having some ideas here. And he has played king h2. Okay. Very nice. Maybe some ideas of queen h4, something like this. So this is why very nice prophylactic play by John Ems, very experienced player. And now he's much better again. People are pointing out we missed rook c2 in the previous variation in the endgame, where black could have still hold on to the pawn. But still, the endgame would have been, I think, nice for white, either case. But probably black's best option, because here, what do you do as black, really? Kind of difficult to create anything. Maybe you go really all out and play something like h5 to play h4. Maybe you need to do something like that.
Looks kind of like the sort of move that I could see David playing.
Mm-hmm. h5 doesn't look too bad. I mean, you want to push away this knight on g3 and then possibly have ideas here going rook g8, and especially considering, once again, John still has to play 5 moves, I believe. 37, 38, 39, no. 4 moves. Would be maybe a good way to amp up the pressure before before he reaches the time control. And you see me smiling. I smile because this ending was pretty cute. We came down this line, bishop c4, and now white promoted to not a queen, to a knight, and black promoted to a rook, and gave checkmate. That's a nice little joke here. Alright, let's return to this game. He played rook g8, which is, of course, also hinting at this idea, h5, h4. And John Ems quickly replied queen f5, which was not the engine's first choice. Engine wanted to go knight f5. But queen f5, at least he played it quickly. But now black indeed could take on d5 again. And should take on d5. Yeah, I think queen f5 was just directed against this h5 idea. Even though, to be fair, black could still consider it, but here I think white just takes. And rook takes g2, just king h1. And now white is having some threats on his own. So that would be good for white. So here David should take on d5. And now rook fa1 and probably just, I was gonna say rook b7. But the engine wants to go queen f6 here. Let's see, rook b7. What's wrong here? Well, now suddenly white is getting very active with his pieces. And this could mean trouble for black. Knight f4 can just play g3 now, and yeah, this means trouble. If for example here rook f8, rook a8 could very well turn out badly for black. There's still the position on the board. What else can black do? Engine's second suggestion is rook bb8 to kick the queen out. That's a move you really don't want to play. Your rook is well placed here on the second rank, tying this rook to defending f2. So Hall needs to find something, and he needs to find it quickly.
Yeah, Hall now down to under 3 minutes as well.
Yeah, this is quite exciting, and this is determining second place.
So he's played queen g7.
Wow. Now white is winning, but only after one move. It's just one move to win this.
Yeah, that's a brave gamble.
What's going on here? And he has not played it. He was too scared. He needed to play rook takes d6, John Ems, but he played king h1. But he was too scared of what black is about to do here. Not sure what black is going to do.
But whatever it was enough to scare him in playing king.
Knight e2? Is that? No, simply queen f6. What scared him? What scared him?
Yeah, queen f6 is a threat.
Let's turn on the engine. Knight e2 is the best move according to the engine. Queen f6? No, this would be just great for white. I mean, this also doesn't work, just to point it out. It's just no follow-up here.
So he missed something.
Well, that's the question. What was he afraid of?
Yeah.
Because I don't see anything. Knight e2, queen f6 is very simple. h5 you obviously don't have the time for. I can just play rook d7. And rook f8, which seems to be the only move preventing queen f6. I can just move my queen. Of course, it's easy for us sitting here with the engine on now, but this doesn't seem too hard.
But if you've just played rook d8, rook g8 rather, and then rook f8, then obviously you're not getting.
Yeah,
Your
that as
attack.
well. So Howell bluffing here, and his bluff is paying off. King h1. Ninja Mutant is saying, rook takes f2 maybe. That's what he might have been afraid of, yeah? And here you need to see
That you can.
that you can just go
Get
to
away with
h1. You don't go to g1 because of knight takes h3.
Mm-hmm.
Even this would be still better for white, to be fair. But of course,
not
that
by a lot.
looks sketchy. But you can just go to h1. Black cannot
There's no
take an
time.
f2 because of queen f6 and mate. Maybe that's what he was afraid of, and he was like, you know what? I'll just move my king for now.
Yeah,
And
I mean
then-
that's you got to calculate a little bit there, and he's got
yeah,
a minute
and he
a
was
half.
down, of course.
So he has played rook f8. The bluff paid off. Actually, now of course with the pawn still on d6, slight difference.
Yeah, here actually best move was knight e2. Which also makes a lot of sense. But rook f8. Here rook a7 is a tough move to play, of course, also with 1.5 minutes. So he played queen g4, which is the second best move. And now really Howell needs to exchange queens and then go into this endgame. Either by taking on g4 or taking on d5 first.
Well, he's been avoiding it for the last few moves, the lines with queen exchanges, but now at least it's going to be the time control, so he doesn't have to think of it in terms of trying to pressure him in the Zeitnot.
Right, exactly, yeah, here. I mean, I don't know, what else can you do? Queen h6, probably just knight f5 already. Yeah. Or knight e4. Queen f6, knight e4, of course. So yeah, you do need to exchange here, and then, yeah, and he has exchanged queens. They reach time control, and he will take on d5 here. And he has done so already. That's the current position. And
So we
now,
take stock, and it's about equal.
yeah, f2 is hanging. Well, white will take on d6. Black takes on c3. But f2 is hanging. So this might peter out to draw pretty quickly here.
Mm-hmm. Well, for sure, Ems is going to take a few minutes here, and maybe even players are getting out from the board. Let's have a look at 10. They've simplified now into a rook ending, but it looks just much, much better for white.
I mean, white has been winning for the last, I don't know, 30 moves or so.
Well, they say all rook endings are drawn, but I don't think this one is.
No, that doesn't apply to positions where you're up 2 pawns. Well, okay, some rook games with 2 pawns up are still drawn, but this one certainly isn't. So let's see. They went down this line. He took on e7, or he took on d5. It really doesn't matter. Knight d6 takes on e7. Yeah. Of course, you still gotta avoid some forks, but even this is still winning for white. That's so sad for black, you know. Even if you go into this fork and you play d6, you're still winning, which might have been even easier, but who cares? King g2 takes now. Just rook e1 he played. Just anything wins really. Goes into rook in game. And yeah, I don't know why Aggie is still kind of torturing himself here with this position when both players know it's been over for a very long time already. White is up 2 pawns. Can play rook c4. Yeah. Okay. Rook d3 was played. King e2. Rook b3, and now just rook c4. And Aggie should really resign rook c4 on the board. And c6, c7 is unstoppable. That's it.
So it looks like we may actually be heading for 10 and Jones coming in at a tie for 3rd place.
Yeah, if we check the standings out real quick. Of course, not all the games have been concluded yet, but it seems very likely that Howell will draw and Justin Tan will win. And if we look at the standings, it's kind of good enough. Then we see Adams, of course, clear lead. Not clear lead. Clear winner, I should say. British champion of 2016. And then Howell, if he draws, he is on clear second. And then Gawain and Justin Tan will be on shared third and fourth. And then there will be other place on 7.5 following.
Yeah, so let's stick around to see at least the conclusion of the Tan game.
Right.
We can remind people who are tuning in late that this was also very important for the youngster to get his Grandmaster norm. And I was thinking the last time we looked at the game that Tan is one of these up and coming young Australian players that are also they're young, but they're so strong that they're probably going to be the future of the Olympiad team. Certainly, some of them already are on the team. I'm thinking Max Illingworth, of course, is the leading light international master from Australia, but also Anton Smirnov, who I got to meet at the Olympiad in Tromsø in 2014, who had a fantastic tournament and is also up there at 24.81. So, and Justin Tan, another one of these guys coming up.
Right. And Justin has just won.
Yeah.
His game, Eggy finally resigned, and congratulations to Justin for gaining his GM norm. I'm not sure how many he has already. Maybe this is his second. Who knows? And also playing a great tournament, 8 out of 11, ending up in most likely third or fourth place. Quite a great result for... How young is he? Do you know?
He was born in 97.
Oh, wow. So he's quite young.
Yeah.
For the 19-year-old.
And, well, we're going to have another quick look at the Howell game, but I also want to take a moment to thanks very much, give our thanks to the English Chess Federation and the British Championship organizer, Kevin Stavely, who I had a lunch with back in December after the London Classic, along with Matt Carr, when we first talked about doing this commentary here. So it's been a long time in the works. And from the ECF, of course, instrumental also Alex Holovchak, who's been liaisoning with all of the electronic board issues and helping to get the tournament set up, and has been right on the ball, especially after they lost Dave Clayton, who was their main DGT admin, who sadly broke his leg early in the tournament and had to go to the hospital, and so they were a little short-staffed for a few rounds there. So we also wish Dave well and a speedy recovery.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, at least for me, commentating, I think, 8 rounds of this tournament, and great games. Mickey Adams, of course, took away the excitement with his stellar performance, but apart from that, some good games.
It's been a lot of fun. I was glad we got to rope Lawrence Trent into coming back.
Oh, absolutely. That was just perfect. I mean,
I was with Lawrence at the only British Championship so far that I've visited in person, which was, I believe, I want to say 2011. When I think Mickey also won, although I didn't look this up, so I'm going from relying on my memory. But we had a nice chat with him along with Stephen Gordon for our Full English Breakfast podcast, and that was quite an eventful tournament as well. Also politically, but we don't need to go into that. This we are gonna to see if there's anything left in the Howell Ems game. If he's going to manage to get clear second place, that is what remains of the drama here, or have to settle for a 3-way tie.
Yeah, no, I don't see him losing this position. Okay, let's just check out a few possible lines. Right now the f2 pawn's hanging. If you lose this pawn, you can just sign the draw right away. So if you go for a line like rook c6, then black can just take on f2 and take c5, and you cannot hold on to your e5 pawn here because the double attack, but it really doesn't matter. What about, can you go knight e2? Knight e2, there's knight h5, which, yeah. I mean, even this is all a draw. I mean, let's be honest. It's all a draw. Once you lose your f2 pawn, you cannot fight for anything anymore as white, really. So if white wants to try something, maybe can play king g1. But here, you know, in some case, I would be even a little bit afraid with the c pawn. And what is going to happen with this one? Like, black wants to play rook c8 now, and I would be a little bit concerned. Engine says all fine, but just from a human point of view, this pawn approaches, I might even lose this for white. So I think here Ems will just play rook c6 and call it a day. King g1. Of course, black also has other options. Can probably even go into the rook endgame here with knight e2. That also looks just absolutely sensible. Yeah, rook c6, just rook e2, and you're tied to the defense of this pawn. And if you move it, then you always have the second rank weakened. Or also there are ideas like e4 here and taking king g7. Black's so active, that's no problem. So I think we're absolutely heading towards a draw here. And I would suggest we wrap it up.
We're going to call it. We've got to reset our studio for the first round of the Sinkfield Cup coming up. Yeah, congratulations once again to our British champion Mickey Adams and British women's champion Jovanka Hauska. And thanks to all of you guys and gals for watching these last 11 days. It's been great fun here, and I hope we can do it again and more events from the UK.
Yeah, thanks for everybody tuning in the chat, interacting with us. Great crowd, I have to say, over the course of the 11 rounds. It's been a lot of fun going through the games with you guys, and I hope you also enjoyed it. And then tonight, of course, in less than an hour, the Sinkfield Cup, the great tournament, is starting. So if you didn't have enough chess yet for today, then you can tune in there in 4 different languages.
Well, it was certainly instructive for me, and we'll make all of the rounds commentary available for replay very shortly. Also thanks to all of our guest commentators, including Fiona, who will be doing the French Sinkfield Cup in 50 minutes. Grandmaster Jan Gustafsson, Lawrence Trent.
Of course.
And yeah, you, Trooper, especially for doing the late
double
shift.
The
double shift.
Yep.
So you need a little break and get set up for another 4 hours.
All right, let's do it. All right, thanks everybody. Goodbye.
So long.